Oh my god, stream dream, not stream. Dream has blown up my chat already. Oh god. Alright, well let's see what you're up to. God, my desk is so cluttered right now. Sure. You wanna come say hi? Or run away? Okay. Oof. Okay. Alright, I should turn on the music. Let me know if you can hear it. Your touch grass today was picking up the dog's poop. Well, I guess you probably literally touched grass while doing that. Been looking forward to this one? Oh, I'm glad. Still haven't managed to get a hold of a copy of one of our titles yet, but as always, I'm very happy to listen and share thoughts afterwards. Well, if you watched Advent Children, you'll still have good input, because this is like about what happens like right before. Having played OG and seen Advent Children, you're not gonna be yeah. I do wonder if we'll be able to discuss the way Cloud and Barret were written and continue our discussion about the changes Square made with writing Barret. We will be talking about Barret today, yes. I want to say we can avoid discussing the topic Clarith versus Clody at all and just talk about the actual interesting parts of the book. There will be a little bit of that though, because I do want to debunk some things. But that's going to be a very, very small portion of what book club's going to be about, because it is a very small portion of the story in general. We'll discuss the Shinra thing and many more subjects we've made videos about or planning to make regarding FF7's universe and characters. Well, unfortunately last night I read a very, very difficult chapter in the Epstein book about the sex trafficking and was crying pretty hard, and oh, it was rough. It was really rough. So I might talk a bit about that or might distance myself, just depends on how I'm gonna feel. All right, well, thank you for sharing right before we start. Also, let me know if you can hear the music. You can't hear the music? Okay. We're gonna have to do it this way then. Shushu! Shushu! Stop it! Oh, hey, King! I might have to turn down the music a bit. Okay. So, because the structure... Oh, you're more than willing to chat or not chat, whatever you want to talk about. Yeah, whatever. Whatever input you have is always appreciated. I do anticipate there'd be being like more participation this time, because I feel like more people have read this one, or at least have played like OG 7 and watched Advent Children and watched played the 3 trilogy. So I do anticipate there being like more discussion, whereas like last time, also the first book club stream, yeah, like very like lesser known story. More people know about this one. Okay, so like this book is structured differently. So I am going to be approaching it differently. So, when you take a look at it, it's episodic. It's episodic with different characters, and then at the end of each chapter, it goes into Lifestream Black and Lifestream White. I'm not gonna get into the Lifestream Black and White until the very end, because that's like when I was taking notes, what I was doing was I was going through all the episodes, and then I wrote a bit about the characters at the very end that the episode was focused on. So I want to do it in like a similar structure to that. I'm also gonna try to be brief, like more brief with the summary of what happened in these episodes, because I struggle with brevity. And I took way too many notes, like way... Okay, let me just show you the thickness. That much. I took a lot of notes. So yeah, we're just gonna go through each episode that focuses on these characters, and then talk about the characters. And then at the end, we'll talk about themes. Yeah, it's hard. Like, you know, you get so excited, you feel like everything's important. We could talk about setting first as well, because I think that's information that helps. Yeah, I went through so many pens while taking notes for this. But yeah, to like talk more about structure. Yes. Like I said, like we will get into a little bit of the shipping stuff with that, just to debunk the insanity, because it needs to. Because yeah, unfortunately, this book gets used as fodder in the debates. Because they'll just take a small section of it and not have the full context, and they'll just go running with it. And like, that is a terrible way of doing things, but you know, it's all cherry picking. Like, that's what happened, is it's cherry picking and confirmation bias. Okay, but more about that later. So, the first episode is about Denzel. The second's about Tifa, Barret, Nanaki, Yuffie, and then Shinra. Like the Shinra one, like, does back and forth POV between Rufus. Okay, I need to put him down. He's being a little hellion. Between Rufus and the Turks. Because Rufus does go through a lot of shit. Like, actually, like, this was my second time reading. The first time was to prepare for the Advent Children watch party, and then this time was to prepare for book club. My respect for Rufus Shinra increased. Like, I actually really like Rufus. Like, yeah, definitely, I would consider him a morally gray character. That might be controversial. I think he's a morally gray character, though. I think, like, his badness... Well, I guess we'll get to that later. We'll get to that later. Yeah, he is hot. I'm not usually into blondes, but he is hot. Okay, so, I think we should talk about setting first, and then we'll get into the episodes. Does that sound good? Okay, so, of course, there's a little bit of Midgar. Shoo-shoo! Shh. God, this dog. Okay. So what happened with the end of OG was it wasn't just, like, Cloud and the party that stopped Sephiroth, but, like, with, like, Aerith's influence in, like, summoning Holy from the Lifestream actually surged. And, like, flooded, like, basically, like, went all over the planet. And did a lot of damage. Did a lot of damage to these cities, but especially Midgar. Like, Midgar was kind of the epicenter of this. And people who had direct contact, ended up getting geostigma, which we'll get into later. So, yeah. Midgar became very unstable, especially topside. Public transportation was no longer working, like the trains were no longer working. So when they were evacuating, they were told to go down the train tracks into the slums. Midgar is talked about a little bit more in the section about Shinra because the Turks set up base in Sector 5. Oh yeah, and of course the Shinra building was hit the hardest because of I believe it was Diamond Weapon that attacked. Like, it's been a couple years since I've played that part of the OG, so remind me which weapon it was, because I don't remember which weapon. I want to say it's Diamond Weapon, though. Okay. Calm is talked about a lot in the book. It did get hit pretty hard. It is Diamond Weapon? Okay, thank you. Thank you for confirming. Yeah, so buildings were still intact, but because Midgar was hit the hardest, they were overrun by refugees from Midgar. And, like, couldn't exactly handle all that. Lieutenant Kyle Gates' mansion was here. We'll get into him when we talk about Shinra. Killmister's Clinic, which we'll also talk about during the Shinra episode. And where Rufus stayed originally before all this crazy shit happened to him, which we will get into later. Okay. And then, of course, there's Edge. Which was the new city built on the outskirts of Midgar to the east, under Rufus's direction. So, like, this is where I feel like there's more input can be put here, because we do see Edge in the movie. Volunteers helped in its construction. A monument was built in the town center to commemorate the planet stopping Meteor, and that construction was done under the direction of Rufus Shinra. Seventh Heaven. Tifa, Barret, and Cloud built a new bar in Edge to bring people together during the struggle of adjusting to the new normal. Which we'll talk about in Tifa's episode. Yes, the planet is called Gaia. Yep. Wutai, of course, we'll get into in Yuffie's. It got pretty hard by the Lifestream due to the buildings being pretty old. She helps healing the patients with geostigma on the outskirts of Wutai. As well as, like, she goes Meteor hunting in a bunch of caves nearby. Yes, I definitely want to do... That might be a July book club, actually. Because I do want to read that book for doing the research for, the video I'm doing about organized crime. Which, by the way, okay. I am so glad I only have 3 chapters left of that Epstein book, because that, it was horrible last night. So I'm glad it's almost done, and then I'm gonna take a couple weeks of a break from that before I start scripting the video, because it just... If you have any shred of empathy, reading about people who have no empathy whatsoever and delight in the cruelty and suffering of other people, you're gonna have a rough time reading what I've been reading. Like, I was like blinking tears while trying to read it and get through it. It's just genuine evil. Anyway. Rocket Town gets talked about in Barret's section. It's where Sid and his crew are drilling for oil to make jet fuel. We'll talk about my feelings about that. And then, in Shinra, the Shinra chapter, there is a cave he ends up being treated in that's used as a makeshift clinic. There are, like, it's a cave with, like, a bunch of dead ends that they use as rooms. And then he eventually goes to this mountain lodge, which was originally used for R&R for Shinra employees, but was now used by Dr. Kilmister to attend to patients as well as Rufus. So we will... It's an interesting episode. Okay. Anything that you guys want to add? Fuck off, OBS. Okay, there we go. Got lost in my notes. Also, OBS is being stupid to me. There we go. Okay, it's fine now. Yeah, anyway. Yes. I think we're good on setting. I think that covers like the main areas. Okay. So let's talk about Denzel. So Denzel's episode starts in Johnny makes this cafe called Johnny's Heaven to pay homage to Seventh Heaven. He is like very inspired by Tifa. So he gets excited to see Denzel in his bar. And this is 2 years after Advent Children. So at this point Denzel is 10. And like when he's telling his story. So he shows up at this cafe to meet with Reeve. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what the devs were thinking on that one. It's important to note that they are Japanese. Japan has a history of colonizing and imperialism. So, and unfortunately, while I don't think the devs are intentionally being malicious, when there's that in your history, it is very likely to have unconscious biases and to have internalized racism. I do believe that should be called out so that education can happen, but also realize the nuance of the situation and go, I don't think their intention was to do that. But it is a good point. I've always thought as well. Okay, so he was meeting with Reeve, who is the leader of the WRO, and he was thinking about scouting Denzel. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. Yeah. And Reeve wanted him to share his story. So that's when we go back to 4 years before. Okay, so Denzel's father, Abel, worked for Shinra's 3rd Operations Division, and his mother, Chloe, ran their home. They lived in company-provided housing topside in Sector 7. His father was promoted to division chief, so they were given a house in Sector 5. They had a celebratory dinner, and it was then that he told Denzel that he was lucky because if he lived in the slums, he would eat rats instead of chicken. That's being brought up now because that does bite him in the ass later. So he grew up believing the slums were worse than they actually were, and he learns the hard way later. One day he was home alone when his dad called. He was wondering where his mom was. So he decided to come home. And he was upset because this is when Avalanche blew up Reactor 1. So they went to find her mother, and he said they were going to the new house in Sector 5 because he knew they were going to destroy Sector 7. But he thought he implied that it was Avalanche that was going to destroy Sector 7. Chloe ran off to warn their friends, despite Abel saying, don't do that, we needed to get to Sector 5 now. He gave up going after her and had Denzel go with him to Sector 5. At the road dividing Sectors 6 and 7, they ran into Arkham, who works with Abel, who said the Turks planted the explosives. So they knew it was Shinra blowing up the plate. Abel asked him to take Denzel to Sector 5, and then he went to go find the mother. They arrived at the new house and watched the news about the Sector 1 reactor. Then the house shook. Arkham told him to stay, and then he left. And then the news showed the plate falling. And he knew his parents were still there. So of course there was panic. People were paranoid that Sector 7 was next. Sector 5 was next, so he ran to Sector 6, but there were already barricades. He was trying to go find his parents. And he saw Sector 7 was completely gone. Yeah, keep in mind, I believe he was 6 at this point, so a 6-year-old kid. They just lost his parents. Of course, Avalanche was blamed. And, in the present, during this meeting, Reeve confirmed that it was Shinra who blew up the plate. So he woke up in their new house. Arkham had left him a note telling him not to go outside. And, he was just experienced loss, but he was mainly exhibiting anger. He went outside anyway to see if anyone knew his dad. He tried many houses, but they were all empty. He soon got lost when he found a toy Shinra airship. He angrily threw it out a window, and an old woman came out, rightfully pissed off, and asked who did that. She caught him crying, so she's like, okay, come inside. Her name is Ruby. And he told her what happened. So she went with him to go find his house. And then she realized he was gonna be alone, so she's like, you know what, just come stay with me for a while. Yeah. This old lady was very prepared. She was very prepared, so she had supplies stocked up. She mostly cleaned, did yard work, cooking, and sewing. Denzel helped with everything except for the sewing. And then she would also read challenging books before bed. And they're books that her son left for her, so she could understand his work. But she still didn't understand any of it, even after reading them for 5 years. But she did leave Denzel a book about monsters, an illustrated book, which was also her son's book. And it had advice that if he encountered certain monsters, to run away and tell a responsible adult. And he knew Ruby couldn't fight, so he felt useless. A big part of Denzel's character is he wants to grow up way too fast, because he feels like he needs to be a protector. So you can see why him and Cloud bond. In the present, Reeve notices Denzel's handkerchief and asks about it. So this handkerchief is going to be an important detail. So he talks about it. One morning during breakfast, Ruby gave him a shirt that she made with the only fabric she had, and it was like a floral print. And she made handkerchiefs out of this fabric, out of the scraps. And then she had him go outside with her, and that was when she pointed out Meteor to him and said that it was going to destroy everything. And that day she tried calling someone several times and got no answer. Denzel suspected she was trying to call her son. And at the end of the day, she told him that she decided to stay instead of evacuating. But she told him he was free to leave and to take all the food with him, but he ended up deciding to stay with her. They witnessed the construction of the Sister Ray at the Shinra building, and Ruby suspected that it wasn't going to work because she is very cynical about the company. And of course she was right, because it destroyed the building and not Meteor. And then the Lifestream was released. It destroyed Meteor. But yeah, like we talked about before, it did a lot of damage. They were trying to sleep despite the howling winds and earthquakes and the noise. And Ruby held him for a while and then turned on the lamp when a blinding light came. And she told him to stay under the blankets, and she left the room because the window that he broke had a tarp on it, and she knew that the Lifestream light would come in through that tarp pretty easily, and she was scared for his safety. So she went to go to secure that, and he went after her, and she's like, go back, go back! But he felt guilty because he broke that window. So he clung to her, and at that second, the tarp blew away and the light came in. She slammed the door and screamed. He pulled out the door despite her protests. She was blocking the door so it wouldn't reach him. He thought to tell an adult, like the monster book told him, but then thought he had to do the fighting. She crumpled to the ground and the light threw him back and he blacked out. When he came to, the house was a mess. Ruby was on the floor. She faintly responded to him calling her name, saying she was glad that he was okay. She also said that she wanted to hold his hand. This old lady is so sweet. I love her. And he noticed that her grip was very weak. She said that her son's hands got too big for her to hold, so Denzel was happy for once that he was a kid. She asked him how it looked outside, and he was scared to look, but he did anyway, and noticed that the whole area outside was... Okay, so I don't know any other way to put it. Yeah. It was just a wreck. It was a wreck. In the present, Reeve listened with his eyes closed while Denzel stared at the table. These details are important, I promise. He checked out the street and saw everything was broken, so he knew that even if he didn't break the window, the Lifestream would still get in there. But then he felt guilty because Ruby got hurt protecting him. So then that was when he went back and found her dead. With a black liquid oozing out of her mouth, which we know to be a geostigma. And under her hair. He cried for his parents and everyone he knew. Like let's remember, he was 6 years old, he lost his parents, and now he just lost this lady who took care of him. Oh yeah, okay, so a big man with a mustache asked him why he was crying. He noticed that the truck was parked outside with 10 people in it. They told them that they were told on TV they needed to take everyone to shelter in the slums. His name was Gaskin. He helped him bury Ruby in the backyard. They buried her son's books with her, and as well as her sewing kit. They thought it was weird that her soil was deep because of the plate beneath, and Denzel said that he suspected that she wanted to plant flowers because she loved flowers. And then in the present, he noticed that Reeve was holding on to every word about Ruby. See, I told you I'm not good. I'm not good about being brief. Okay, so on his way to the terminal in the truck, Gaskin told him, "You got to look out for yourself." And also they were told to walk down the tracks to get to the slums. No one was celebrating being saved from Meteor, and said they were delayed, like they're angry about the delayed evacuation order and wanted to blame someone. Okay, so he was walking down when he noticed that people were stopping, and it was because there was a 3-year-old child crying for his mom. And he lost his balance on the track, so Denzel grabbed his arm. The crowd told him not to touch him because he was marked, and he didn't know what they were talking about. So he just dragged him to the side. He was wondering why no one was helping this child. And then he realized that the boy's back had the sticky black fluid, which we know to be geostigma. And people thought that it was contagious, and that was why they were acting that way. And I think, you know, we all lived through COVID. I think we can relate to this book a lot. After 3 hours, a woman holding a baby in the hand of a girl his age gave him the girl's blue coat. It was her sister's coat, and it was given to the boy because he died like the sister died. Yeah, so no one knew what geostigma was and thought that it was spread through direct contact. And they didn't know that it was actually Genova's remains corrupting the Lifestream. So of course there was a panic. They reached the ground station, wanted to find someone new, but he got hungry. This is when he like ran into Gaskin again, and he stayed in the area with the other orphans to help with searching bags, helping bury bodies, dealing with refugees. Gaskin and his crew were preparing to move to Edge, to start building Edge. They had the kids help too with small things, with getting materials to construct Edge. Okay. I'm sure to like paint the scene as well for them, like just that like it's unknown to them. Okay, so they became the Sector 7 scavengers. These kids banded together and were like happy to be useful and to live like adults, even though they're children. Oh yeah, and then Gaskin, when he was telling his plans to move them all to Edge, they figured out that he got geostigma, and he died a month later. And like the men moved on to Edge, but the kids stayed because they didn't want to leave. But then one or two at a time, they started leaving for Edge. Okay. I need to not share every detail. Eventually, it was him and his friend Rix. And they realized they were left without any money. So Rick said they needed to go to Edge to find a charity that gives free food. He's like, we can't stay here anymore. Like not even for stubborn pride. So Denzel accused him of giving up and then suggested catching rats. Because his father told him that they'd eat rats. This is when it bites him in the ass. because chicken was too expensive, and he wanted to live like a real slum kid. And rightfully, Rix was offended to hear what topsiders really thought of people who lived in the slums. And so he educated him about the fact that the sewage from topsiders trickle down into the slums and in turn infects the rats. So it would be suicide to eat the rats. They would never eat the rats. And he's just like, okay, I'm done with you, basically, and he left. And yeah, Denzel didn't follow him because he knew he was right. And he felt like he wouldn't forgive him. So he stayed instead and didn't go to Edge. Because he thought that it'd just be the same over in Edge and that life wouldn't improve. Yeah, Reeve asked about Rix. And he told Reeve that Rix was still alive. But they don't talk. And Reeve says, well, then you still have a chance to patch things up. Okay. So he was planning on actually eating a rat. And since he was now alone, he lost everyone. He lost hope of good things ever happening to him again. And like the rats were gone. So he kept looking until he found Aerith's church and Cloud's motorcycle with a phone on it. So he tried calling Sector 7 to find out about his parents, but like, no, like, the phone's like, oh, the service is unavailable in Sector 7 or whatever. So then he thought to call a number from the call history, and that was when he called Tifa. She answered surprised because he never calls, Cloud never calls, and asked if something was wrong. And then she got suspicious when she found out it wasn't Cloud, that it was Denzel. And then he cried because his head was suddenly in pain. And then he found the black liquid. He woke up and found himself in a real bed with Tifa and Marlene looking after him. And he told Reeve that, you know, he knows the rest. He knows the rest of the story. And he talked about that if it weren't for all those people who helped him, he would be dead. So he wanted to help others too and be protecting others for a change. Johnny was like, you're just a kid. Like, no, you don't need to be doing that. And this was like when Reeve was really cool. But also I'm like, why didn't you have this policy before? He decided then and there that they no longer enlist minors. So Denzel's like, okay, well, what's the point? What's the point of this meeting? And like, that was when Reeve was like, I decided on the spot. Because I think you should be doing what kids do. And that is to help adults be strong when they need to be. I would amend it to say that he just needs to be a kid. Kids need to be kids. They should not have this kind of responsibility. They need to just be a kid. So he got up to leave and then thanked Denzel for taking care of his mother. And that was when he pulled out the handkerchief with the flower print on it. So we know that Ruby was Reeve's mom. Johnny asked him why he wanted to join, and he answered that it was because of Cloud. That Cloud was in the military once, and he looked up to Cloud. Yeah, then he realized that the strongest people that he knew were the ones that ruffled his hair, held his hand, and made him feel loved while the world was falling apart. It was those adults that were there for him. So that's Denzel's story. So to talk about his character, like, he has the complex about wanting to protect those that he loves. And he has a special bond with Cloud because we know that they have that in common. Like, it's similar. He doesn't like crying and appearing weak. He also carries a lot of guilt. Because he grew up topside, he was ignorant of slum life, which did get him into trouble. And because of losing his parents, Ruby, Gaskin, and roughing it in the slums, he carries a lot of trauma and wants to grow up too fast in order to be useful. Oh! I really am long-winded. Okay. Anything you guys want to add about Denzel in the story? The impressions you have, what you liked, disliked about that part. I think I'm gonna pee while you guys discuss it. And then I'm gonna try to be more brief with everyone else. We could always do a part 2 if we need to. Yeah, I love his story too. Okay. Oof. Okay. So I guess we can talk about Tifa's episode. I'm gonna try to be more brief. So we get the start of her. Oh yes. Like start of her story. Barret had already left to settle some things, which we will read about. We'll talk about next. Cloud was somewhere in Midgard, but she didn't know where. And like she was always worried about the worst case scenario with him, but people would see him, so they would report to her and be like, he's fine. She couldn't pretend that nothing was wrong for the sake of the kids anymore. Like she carries a lot. Cloud was with you. Yeah, it's a lot, like her story is a lot about her trying to keep the family together and to suppress a lot of her feelings, like usual, and her worries about Cloud and her guilt and her insecurities, that she's like pushing this all aside in order to keep the peace. There's a lot of that. She blamed herself for Cloud leaving. But she did remember that right before he left, he did smile at her as if to say everything will be all right. Yeah, it's just Tifa's an overthinker. Tifa's a big overthinker and internalizes a lot, as we all know. So when Meteor was prevented by the Lifestream, she just wanted it to wash away the past. And she kept asking herself if she was just supposed to carry on regardless of everything. She reflects a lot over her part that she played with Avalanche and all the lives that were lost because of their bombings, as well as Shinra dropping the plate in retaliation. She carried a lot of guilt for all those lives that were lost. And like, you know, she just reflected about how she justified it by saying that this was for the greater good and just pushed down her real feelings. And because of the journey being just non-stop as it was, she didn't have time to stop and think about it. And they had to go after Sephiroth anyway. It talked about how she, you know, met new friends along the journey, and she bonded with Aerith, and when Aerith died, Tifa felt like it was karma for what she did. And right before the final battle, Tifa finally got to reflect on everything, and that it all led back to the Nibelheim incident, her hate for Shinra and Sephiroth, which brought her to Avalanche. And she knew that it was personal grudge. It was not to save the planet. That was a front. That was a front for her real motivations. And she felt guilty about that. But then she noticed Cloud next to her smiling. And she had never seen him smile like that during their entire journey. And when he caught her looking at him, he said, "This is where it starts. A new life. I'm gonna keep on living. I think it'd be wrong to do anything else after all that's happened." So it's really interesting that while Tifa is feeling a lot of guilt and it's all catching up to her, that Cloud is the one that's being optimistic and is helping her have some of that and gave her strength to carry on. You see a lot of that in this like the first part of Tifa's episode is just Cloud didn't start off being a mopey, broody edgelord that we see in Advent Children. Like, he actually had a lot of hope for the future and for his future. Very sweet to see. Tifa says that he's right, and he laughs about how he's always screwed it up. But this time he thinks that it's going to be okay, because this time, yes, this time he has her. This time he has her. Which, okay. And now he knows what that means. Yeah, he knows what it means to have her with him, and that they're in it together. So they visited Aerith all together at the Forgotten Capital after preventing Meteor. And she thought about the world that she gave her life for was okay now. Then she heard what I think was Aerith's voice saying, "What about you? Are you okay?" And hearing that made her cry. Because when Aerith was killed, she didn't have time to mourn her at all. And instead, she turned it to anger, which she directed at Sephiroth. I mean, like we learn in Traces that Tifa does carry a lot of anger, that it is something that both motivates her and holds her back. And that was why her cord that Zangon gave her represented her anger. And how she needed to channel it effectively. Yeah, so this made her see more about, like, what she did with Avalanche made others feel like how she did. Angry. So she cried harder. Yes, yes, exactly. His decline was gradual because it shows how he's going to be after Advent Children ends. It's because he got triggered. Which we'll get into more. Cloud put a hand on her shoulder, and she knows that it's safe for her to cry because she has him now and she's not alone. Okay. And then after that, it was strangely easy for everyone to go their separate ways. He's fine in Dirge. See, and I don't know much about Dirge. Starting with Vincent, of course. Cloud and Tifa went with Barret to Corel, since that's where it started for him. They went to Nibelheim too. And Cloud said that they shouldn't stay there because he felt like they'd be dragged back into the past and they needed to move on. They went to Calm, where Cloud gently told Elmira about Aerith. They all apologized to her, and she said they didn't need to do that because she felt like they did everything that they could. Yeah, since Calm was full of refugees from Midgar, and the stigma came, Barret didn't want Marlene around the stigma, so they got out of there. Especially because they believed it to be contagious back then. So they went to Midgar. And Tifa shared the thoughts that she had, like, before the final battle, and she got lectured big time. Barret said that no matter where they go, they can't run from the past, which is true. And they can't run away from their guilt. So they have to keep on living. That's the only thing that they can do to atone. And he gave her the advice to give instead of take. When they were alone, Cloud told her that she was stronger than that. And if she forgets how to be strong, then he'll just be there to remind her, which... Cloud is such a sweetheart. Like true Cloud is the biggest sweetheart. And, like, that needs to be highlighted more, definitely. So they helped in Midgar with getting supplies for Edge. And one day, Barret was paid in alcohol, a kerosene heater, and fruit, so he made them cocktails, and while they were drinking, they reminisced. So the next day, he floated the idea to Tifa about opening another bar. Because he felt like people needed the bar to help bring them together. And also for some levity. Definitely. Tifa had her... Yes. Yes, exactly. That's... We know it's the same Cloud that she grew up with. Just, you know, has trauma. As we all do, but, you know, he has a lot of it. So Tifa had her doubts about building the bar at first because it felt like going back to her past with Avalanche. But Barret said that, like, he felt like if she didn't keep working that she would get depressed. Which, you know, relatable. And, like, Edge was forming then, and word spread about the bar, so they had help with building it. So they all helped and had their role to play, and whenever she caught herself laughing, she felt guilty. Like she wasn't allowed to be happy considering the pain she caused. But then, a crisis would happen, and she wouldn't have time to dwell. She had to deal with the crisis, so, you know, she knew Barret was right. And when it was time for her to name the bar, they left it up to her. And Marlene suggested that they call it Seventh Heaven, which was the last name that Tifa wanted. But Marlene shared about how it was fun for her there, which reminded Tifa that for Marlene, it was a happy home. It was not Avalanche. Oh, hey, Gavin! It's nice to see you. I'm not brief. So she agreed to call it Seventh Heaven, and it served as a symbol to come to terms with their past and keep living. And it became an instant hit. And they even created a kids menu so that families could join. Barret would drink in the corner. Cloud's job was to gather supplies, but he didn't know vegetables, which was kind of, it was comical. So like that made her laugh, but she stopped herself when she remembered why he was ignorant. Yeah, he was terrible, but he was learning how to negotiate prices, so Tifa was proud of him and his progress. But she also wondered if he was working himself too hard for her sake, and a scary thought occurred to her that he might decide to leave once the bar went smoothly. Kind of one of those cases of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, in a way. We'll get to that later. Yes, Marlene is... Like, I think the devs realized what they had with her. Okay. So Barret was the first to leave. Cloud accepted that he left, but Tifa was mad because they all have things to settle, so she felt like Barret just dipping was kind of selfish. Yeah, and then Barret said that she can prove that she can give and not just take from the bar. Like, from the bar she can learn that. For him, he needed to go elsewhere to figure it out. And Cloud knew about it beforehand and told her that he didn't say anything to her because Barret said that this is where she belonged. So Tifa wanted to ask if that was what Cloud thought too. That night, like, Marlene usually spent the night with Tifa, but that night she spent it with Barret. And asked him to send her letters and to call every now and then. Barret had a prosthetic. He replaced it with a machine gun because fighting was the only way he knew how to live. And Tifa hoped he'd learn how to give too. And then this is when Marlene told him that Cloud and Tifa would be her parents for now, but she would also take care of them. She definitely did. Barret told them families gotta stick together. And so Tifa felt like a family. Cloud was optimistic, and so Tifa decided to stop worrying about what they are to each other. And then after a few months, Cloud called her while he was getting supplies. He asked her if it was okay to print one lifetime voucher of free meals and drinks at 7th Heaven. Tifa didn't question him on it because she felt like he must have wanted something really bad to justify that. And that was when he brought in Fenrir, his motorcycle. In his spare time, he would work on it, and then even bring engineers to help him soup it up. And so since he had this bike, he can now go farther and get better supplies. One night, he got a call for delivery. And he didn't want to explain to Tifa that he started delivering. And he felt bad for keeping it a secret, and he acted very like a child would when they keep a secret from their parents, which made her laugh. But he felt bad keeping it from her because there was money involved, which he used to soup up his bike. It's a good point. Yeah, if she has to worry about what they are, they're not platonic. Yeah. It's a good point. Like, it's just like, read the context. We'll get into that in a minute. She felt sad that he found another world to live in that she wasn't a part of, but she was glad that he was broadening his horizons. She felt like a mother in that way. People take this part of it and say like, oh, she's like a mother figure to him. She sees him as her son. No. She was just like, this must be what a mother feels like, where like, you know, you're proud of, like, that proud of someone that you're close to. Like, that's it. That's it. This is not her infantilizing him and playing the mother role and that it's like a creepy incestuous thing. No. No. You know what? You might be right, Stalwick. His true love might be Fenrir. Anyway, Tifa realized that she was happy. Also, it's been a while. How are you doing? So like this was a good point. She was doing better. She was feeling less depressed. And then it was her that oh, I'm glad you're doing good. It was her that encouraged him to turn it into a full delivery business. And that her and Marlene would cover the phone, that they could call the bar and everything. So Tifa was very, very supportive of him doing this and encouraged him. Yeah, he slept on it and agreed. And then that was when the Strife delivery business was born. And it quickly took off because due to the infrastructure being really terrible then because they were rebuilding, getting around was hard. And also there were the monsters, roads were broken from the Lifestream, so there was a lot of demand for his delivery business. And like, you know, he's Cloud, he's not good at dealing with people. But what he was doing and the service he was providing was bringing people together. And Tifa loved that for him. But it did things started to go downhill from there because he was starting to spend less time with the family because he was busy. So the three of them couldn't talk as much. She closed the bar once a week, but usually his delivery schedule did not correspond with that. So they hardly ever had a day off together. Because he almost never turned down a client. Yeah, it is, yeah, it is a pretty domestic arc without, you know, going into... people from the Clody side like to talk about how this was a sexless relationship because you don't read about them having sex. And I'm like, just because there's an omission of it from the reading doesn't mean it wasn't happening. It just means the story is not focused on that, you sex-crazed weirdos. Yes, Cloud is like an Uber driver. Okay. So she wished that that they could that he would take a day off with them. But she felt that that was a selfish request, so she kept that to herself. And I just want to tell Tifa, like, honey, it's okay to express these things. You need to express these things. Otherwise, he doesn't know that something's wrong. Like, you don't... They're not gonna know something's wrong or something's bothering you unless you say it. But I understand as a recovering people pleaser myself who hates confrontation. I make myself do it. Because I know that the alternative is me suppressing my feelings and pushing them all down, and then resentment builds and then I blow up. So, anyway. And it was Marlene. Intuitive Marlene who noticed Cloud changing. Especially like when she'd be talking, he'd be looking at the sky and not paying attention to what she's saying. And it bothered Tifa, because while he didn't initiate conversations with Marlene, he usually at least listened to her. So she was concerned. So one day she went into his office to clean, and that was when she saw Myra's parcel slip requesting a flower delivery to Aerith's grave at the Forgotten Capital. Yes, they did! They literally had sex under the High Wind, exactly. Yeah, it's like you don't need to show that sex was happening. You don't need to do that. The book is not about that. They did it twice. Okay. Yeah, she knew that him not saving Aerith weighed heavily on him. And she knew that going back there would reopen those scars. The next night when she closed, she saw him drinking. And she asked if she could join him. But he said he wanted to drink alone. So that was when she snapped at him. And she's like, go drink in your room then. I bet you were there, King. Barret called sometimes, and one day when he called, Tifa overheard Marlene telling him that her and Cloud weren't getting along. So, they both made an effort to make it appear like everything was fine. Very typical, like, our parents are fighting. They don't want us to know they're fighting, but we can tell that they're fighting. That was going on. So when she talked to him, they wouldn't talk about anything serious. And he tried to make her, like, he tried to meet her halfway for the sake of Marlene. But Marlene picked up on it and was like, you guys are driving me nuts. Please stop. Okay. I think we need to read this passage because this is where a lot of misunderstandings happen. Let me find it. Yeah, probably. Okay. So, this passage, I'm gonna read it. It wasn't going well, but they were together because they were family. They lived in the same house, and they lived by working together. Maybe we don't talk or laugh as much as we could, but we're still a family, she thought. Or at least she tried to. Yes. Yes, it's that scene. It's that scene. Later, she sat next to Cloud as he slept and asked the question she dared not ask when he was awake. We're okay, aren't we? Of course there was no answer, only the sound of his slow, even breathing. Was the fact that he slept here enough? Did that alone make them a family? Do you love me? Suddenly his eyes opened, and he looked at her groggily. Hey Cloud, do you love Marlene? Okay, first of all, she would not be asking that unless they were like... I mean, I feel like it's normal, like when couples are going through a rough patch, to be wondering that. Anyway, that might be like reading into it, but I'm just like... She did not ask him if he liked her. She asked him if he loved her. Like, let's have a little bit of literacy here. Anyway. That and like then she chickened out and asked if he loved Marlene. Yes, I just don't know how to act around her sometimes. But we've been together for a long time now. Maybe. I just need more than just time. And what about you and me? Cloud didn't answer. Sorry, said Tifa. I don't know why I'm asking these things. Don't be sorry. It's my problem. Cloud shut his eyes again. We could make it ours. Tifa waited for him to say something, but he never answered. That was like the thing with Tifa, is like she noticed that he was starting to struggle and she's trying to encourage him like, hey, let's work this out together. Like, we're a family. Yes, yes, he does. Like, he confirmed that he loves Marlene. You know, it's like they're family. Also, like, he wasn't freaking out about the fact that she was next to him while he was sleeping. Like, tells me that this is a normal thing for them to just be next to each other while he's sleeping. So it's like... Yes, yes, they all love each other. Yeah, it's just silly. I think there was another passage that I was gonna read later. Okay. So then it was not long after that that Denzel was brought home, and they became even a bigger family. And it talks about when she heard Denzel on the phone, she felt dread until Cloud came on. And he said it looked like Denzel has geostigma. Tifa didn't think that it was contagious, but she was worried about Marlene catching it, as well as how it would affect the bar. But she already offered like her home to Denzel before she found out about the geostigma. Yes, exactly. It's complicated. It's like no relationship is perfect, and they're a family. Families go through rough patches. Yeah, and she also realized that Cloud wanted to bring him home, and she felt like that would be good for him. And Cloud already anticipated that she was worried about it affecting the bar, so when he brought him in through the back. When she heard Denzel's story, she knew he was supposed to be with him. He lost his parents because of the plate dropping, because of avalanche, so she felt like it's her responsibility to take care of him. Which... I love that so much. I love that so much. Like, it felt like a true redemption arc. Yes, it's the real thing when you still love each other despite having problems. Exactly. It's a test. It's a test to see how well you're gonna handle conflict and how you're gonna stick together. And it's normal. You're fine. You don't need to apologize, Dream. Okay, so Cloud agreed to have him be a part of the family, and Marlene was excited. At first, Denzel wanted to stay briefly, but when he started helping out, he started to open up to them. Business started to slow, and they knew why, but they didn't say anything. Okay, one night after close, Cloud sat with Marlene and Denzel for delivery stuff. Denzel bonded with Cloud, and looked up to him and asked him everything instead of Tifa, which she ended up feeling insecure about that. And she resented that Denzel told Cloud about Ruby and didn't tell her. Yeah. And one time she ended up complaining to a regular, which wasn't great. And the regular said that it sounded like a normal, healthy family to him. And she felt like that wasn't true because she was feeling like deeply insecure. But she, looked at this scene of Cloud sitting together with the kids, and she's like, okay, he looks like a young father. And that, like, was heartwarming to her. Yeah, so he would have them learn to sort the orders, and he would teach them how to spell properly. They would ask him to describe the places. Yeah, it is normal for families, definitely. And, of course, he was usually vague, so then she would fill in the details. She'd get bothered because Denzel would ask Cloud if what Tifa said was right. But she felt like Denzel made their family complete. It was very cute that he was teaching them how to spell. Like, they were in a rough patch. There's a lot of wholesomeness in this chapter. Good question, though. Does he know how to spell? We know that Zach doesn't. Okay. Yeah, but she felt like he completed the family because Cloud spent more time with them after Denzel came. Like, I think he, like, you know, having Denzel there was really, really good for Cloud because Marlene bonded with Tifa. And, like, while Cloud did love Marlene and does love Marlene, like, they didn't have that kind of special bond, but with Denzel, that he did. And he needed that. And Tifa knew that. She just, you know, she's struggling mentally. Okay, I think I need to read this passage too. Yeah. Okay. That would be really funny. So did you work out that problem? Tifa wondered. What problem? Your problem. Oh. Cloud fell into silence. It's okay if you don't want to talk about it. No, I do. It's just, I don't know if I can explain it right, he said. I haven't worked it out. I mean, there's no way to work it out. Once someone's gone, there's nothing anyone can do, right? Tifa nodded. But now I've got another chance to save a life, and I'm thinking maybe it's possible, even for me. Denzel? Yes. Yeah. Do you remember the day you brought Denzel home? Sure. It sounded to me like you'd made up your mind to bring him in whether I liked it or not. No, Cloud looked like a child who knew a scolding was inevitable. Just tell me. I'll hear you out first before I decide whether I'm mad. Cloud nodded. He paused, then in a torrent. I found Denzel on the ground outside Aerith's church, and I thought she must have led him to me. You were at the church? I didn't mean to keep it from you. But you did. I'm sorry. Why? I never told you not to, but next time I'm going with you. Okay, but Cloud, you're wrong. He gave her an uncertain look. Aerith didn't lead Denzel to you. I know, it's just how I felt is all. That's not what I mean, Tifa said softly. She led Denzel to us, to our family. Cloud held her gaze, then he smiled. Only a few days after that, he was gone. She thought she'd seen a promise of a future in that smile. Did I imagine that promise? So, this is important because of the narrative that, he wanted to die to be with Aerith. I mean, we all know that to be completely false, but like it says in here that he felt like Denzel was a second chance for him. Yeah. Yeah, it was like a second chance for him to save a life. And like especially that this child that he felt a connection to. And that was part of what led him to leave, was figuring out how to cure Denzel of the geostigma. Like, yeah, he was relapsing because of his PTSD being triggered because he had to visit Aerith's grave at the Forgotten Capital, and all that. Like, he was triggered. And then, you know, down the line, he contracted geostigma, and as we find out later in the book, it gets contracted by having contact with corrupted water from the Lifestream, and then thinking about death and giving up to death. Yeah, so it's interesting. But yeah. Yeah, exactly. Cloud just can't get a break. I hate that narrative so much that he just wants, like, he's like a necrophiliac and he wants to kill himself to be with Aerith, when like that's not true. He wants things to be better for his family. He wants to save Denzel. And being unable to save Denzel was the real trigger, I think, of him relapsing mentally with his mental health. Like, I would say, like, Aerith was a huge part of it. His guilt for not saving her was definitely a huge part of it. But I think the nail in the coffin was Denzel. But I am interested in hearing your guys' thoughts. But it's just, like, nowhere in here does it say that Cloud wanted to kill himself to be with her. That he wanted death. Like, he probably gained a fear of death, otherwise he wouldn't have contracted geostigma. But that doesn't mean that he wanted to die to be with her, you know what I mean? It's just, it's a take I'm never gonna agree with. It's like, it's not in the text at all. It's not in this book. It's not in this movie. It is fan fiction, and it is psychotic fan fiction, in my opinion. Like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I think that's disgusting. I think that's sick. And it's like, I think if you have that opinion, you should get help. Like, you probably need professional help. Like, that's probably too harsh, but I'm like, if that's your take from this to make your ship work, I think you have some shit you need to unpack. But yeah, I think like the key here is that he smiled after she said that he was led to their family. It seemed like he had hope. He had hope then. Anyway, it's already been over an hour. I might have to split this into 2 streams. We'll see. There's so much in this book, that's why. I think I need to take another pee break also. I'm getting contacted. Okay. We'll have to figure that one out. Yes, of course, he misses Aerith. I don't accept the suicide narrative. I do not accept that. Yes, Tifa misses her too. Alright, I'm gonna pee real quick. You guys can discuss in the chat. I'll be right back. My roommate made no bake cookies because she's amazing. Okay, so Tifa was your favorite part of the book? I really liked it. I think my favorite was the Shinra chapter. But we might get to it today. We might not. You like Denzel's version? Oh, Cloud and Tifa domestic drama. Marlene tells Cloud that she knows why he left to his face. Marlene just knows. Does Cloud want to offer himself to be with Aerith? Cam. Cloud does want to offer himself to be with Aerith, does he not? You just need to read the Claire thing and canon section. You kept getting annoyed about how mopey Cloud is. Definitely wasn't at first. Strongest evidence against Cloud being suicidal is in Advent Children through the Aerith interactions littered throughout the film. Yes, it's literally about wanting forgiveness. Episode Shinra is one of your favorites too. It's just interesting. Like, I really like Rufus. You just got back from work, you've missed a lot. Well, it's mostly me rambling. Because I'm not brief. Okay, I think we can move on to Barret. Let me see how long my notes are. I really took very extensive notes. I went through a few pens, actually. Yes, I am definitely excited for his arc too. I will definitely be making videos about Rufus in the future because he is the one that created Avalanche. But I do have my hands very full with the organized crime stuff. I'm just glad I'm almost done with that Epstein book because, oh my god, it's horrible. It's horrible. Yes, Nanaki's story is cool too. Okay, I gotta be faster with what I... Okay, I think Barrett's is... Oh hey, I didn't take that many notes on Barrett's. Okay, this will be quicker then. Okay, so, you know, we know that he left Marlene to Cloud and Tifa, and he leaves to get some things figured out. Oh, your favorite part of Advent Children is when Rufus calls out Akdash for being a little bitch. And then pieced out in the most badass way possible. Yes, I love Rufus so much. He really is that bitch. There's also a special feature on Advent Children where Cloud tells Tifa to close the bar so they can have a family day. Okay, yeah, once I record footage for Advent Children, I'm gonna look for that. Because I do have the DVD. Okay. Barret struggled with the idea of leaving Marlene, but he felt like staying with her was holding him back from truly atoning. And his own advice to Tifa didn't help him because he didn't know what to do. A lot of this was him, like, going, he doesn't know what to do during times of peace because he literally has a gun for an arm. All he knows is fighting. So it's like there's a lot of grappling he has to do with his character and his arc in the story. So for 6 months he wandered the world. And, like, you know, their goal came true of shutting down all the Mako reactors. They were no longer operating. But he was left with no direction. Okay. I'll try my best. Yeah, so what he would do is he'd go and hunt monsters. But that was just only helped briefly. During an experience in Junon. Okay. During his experience in Junon with like a mother and her child like fearing him, he decided to go visit this guy in Corel named Old Man Sakaki. He was in charge of maintaining the equipment they used for mining. And when Corel transitioned to Mako, he left the village, but then he came back after Corel's fire and Shinra and all that tragedy. So it was him that offered to make a prosthetic for Barret. First it was a hook. Barret felt like that was useless. Then it was a hammer. That still wasn't enough. So Sakaki called him out how he just wanted revenge, so he gave him an adapter and said he could attach any tool he wanted with that. And that was when he started to wear a gun for an arm. But the guy warned him that he'd best think long and hard about what you choose. Barret didn't listen, as we know. But now he went back to Sakaki for a new prosthetic that was more like a hand, so it wouldn't scare people. Yeah, he told him that he needed to weak and asked him to help his nephew in the meantime. So the next day, he entered a steam wagon, which is what they used when he was a kid. And it usually took 4 people to operate, and they were slow, and he, like, worked as the bodyguard. Okay. Just trying to skim over unnecessary details. So what they were doing is they were going to get potatoes grown in a smaller village because food supplies were harder to come by, considering they could no longer use Mako energy to help with the farming operations. So it took more manpower to grow things. And encountering this problem finally gave him some purpose and some project to tackle. And so he's like, okay, I can figure out what to do to, like, go back to how we lived before Mako was a thing. He's like, okay, I could, like, he had this, like, a farm fantasy going on, of him being the leader. And then he was reminded of Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge. And then he got broody and guilty. And then he paid attention to Sakaki's nephew was talking to a villager because his daughter was sick with the stigma, and he had hope that they could take her to Midgar and she could be treated there. But Barret knew that, like, with how sick she looked, that she wouldn't make it in time. But he didn't know how to break the news to them because that would destroy their hope. And so he debated with one of the stokers, the coal stokers. And the stoker said he'd go break the news. But, you know, unfortunately on his way to break the news, the girl passed away. Okay, so he helped bury the girl, and the man said he wished he had an airship to take her to Midgar. And that was when he told the guy that Midgar didn't have a cure either. The man told him that it didn't matter where the cure could be, because as soon as they found it, if they had an airship, they'd be ready to help the next victims. So we cut to Rocket Town. East of Rocket Town, Shira is there at a refinery and an oil well that was built many years ago. And she discovered that the well was running dry, and then she discovered she had geostigma. Barret came to Rocket Town and yeah, he found his way to Sid. Yeah, he figured out on the way to Sid that they were working on an airship. But the engine was taking a while because of no Mako. And when he found Sid, they caught up, and he asked if he could help and shared his ideas of how airships could help with, you know, finding the cure and getting people, like, transporting people to the cure. And he thought about, like, oh, we could use a little bit. Right. Shira, yeah. Cut him to the curb. Throw him away. Let's see. I lost my spot. Yeah, he's like, we could use a little bit of Mako. Just use a tiny bit. The planet will forgive us. And Sid's like, that's not gonna work. Also, you're being a hypocrite. Yeah, okay. He thought of Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge and vented to Sid. He shot the ceiling up, of course. After he calmed down, Sid told Barret that he's right, that they only need a little Mako. The main reason the reactors were down was because they didn't have Shinra's organization. And they're also scared of pissing off the Lifestream again because of all the damage that the Lifestream did. And the Lifestream's currents had already shifted, so the reactors wouldn't have Mako anyway. And then when the reserves run out, it'll really be the end of the Mako age. And that was when Sid was thinking about going back to oil and fossil fuels, which I'll be honest, I hated that. I hated that about this part of the book. Because I think we all know how harmful fossil fuels are to the planet. I don't know in the lore of how Gaia is, but I'm like, the planet operates very similarly to our planet. So, like, I'm assuming it's also damaging, just maybe not as damaging as siphoning lifeblood from the planet. But, you know, I don't know. Maybe there's, like, lore. Making Gaga mushrooms, Barret, not oil. Maybe they could be fuel. They are big enough. JP's arrived! Yay! Just in time. Okay. Barret has his doubts, but Sid kept selling him on the potential. And he said Shinra. Shinra even saw the potential in oil because they also drilled for it. But the well was on the seabed, and they can't make it there without submarines. And also the Lifestream smashed up the pipeline, so that wasn't an option. And so he explained that his team pulled out old records and located a pre-Mako oil field, and they'd been working hard to make gasoline. But it didn't give enough energy, so they were working on developing jet fuel. But they needed a powerful enough engine to handle it, so that was with the whole conflict of building this engine. Okay, yeah, here's a quote from Sid. We're living at the end of one age and the start of a new one, and we get to choose how it's gonna go down. I don't think oil is a good solution for that, but the sentiment is a good one. That they had the power to begin a new history that's better. It's just they needed to figure out better options than oil. Okay, when they went to the oil field, they noticed this stigma on Shira. And she said that they shut down that morning because yields were down 10% of what they started with. But she was optimistic that the planet cared about them, so they'll figure out new ways of doing things. Yeah. Yeah, Sid asked about the fuel and she said that there was enough for one round trip around the planet. Yeah, she didn't want to stop working. So she accepted it when he said he wanted help with the engine. Again, Shira, leave him. He sucks. Yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. Barret directed his thoughts to the planet that he's going to keep fighting, keep living in order to give everyone a future. Sakaki came with a new prosthetic carved from wood that didn't need an adapter. He said he didn't need it after all because he was going to keep looking for oil and needed a weapon. And he felt like it was his penance. After hearing him, Sakaki brought a steel prosthetic hand. He said it was payment for helping his nephew, but if he didn't need it, he'll hold on to it. He told him to come get it after he's done with his mission. And Barret vowed that as soon as he's done with his mission, he's going to write Marlene with the prosthetic hand. Okay. Advent Children was released in what, 2005? And then I believe this book was released, at least internationally, in 2009. While certainly back then, people were, like, considering alternatives like wind power, and solar energy. I don't think it was that mainstream, like, of a solution yet. I think it was just barely developing. So this is one of those things where I'm like, okay, this is kind of a product of the time. Since they've been doing the remakes, I wonder if, like, the devs are going to stray away from the oil solution and instead do something that's... Like, what I'm saying is, like, I don't normally like retcons. This is something that I hope they retcon. Like, if we're gonna talk about, like, personally what I'd like, I really hope this gets retconned. Because if you're gonna have, like, a game where the main conflict, it, like, has very, very large environmentalist themes, you need to be consistent with that messaging. So, like, whether or not, like, in the lore of how Gaia functions, if, like, fossil fuels don't harm the planet, you're still, like, using fossil fuels as an alternative when it is something that we know in our real world is harmful to the planet. So I think it's like a retcon that wouldn't be hard to integrate. Like, for the sake of consistency with the messaging. So. Alright, any thoughts about Barret's chapter? I'm glad it was shorter. Nanaki's is not gonna be shorter. Let me take a look. Okay, let me just take a look at this. Global warming kills everyone. Lifestream gets stronger. You know, that is a point. Oh god, that's funny. Okay. I think we can move on to Nanaki's then. Just finding cross-stitch threads everywhere. Finally got around to cross-stitching last night. That was Sephiroth's secret plan. Oh, how do I feel Barret was written in that? I do like the development of his character because it is a lot of. Oh, not to the scale of remake. No, certainly not. They did explore his complexity with his guilt, and also trying to figure out his place in the world during times of peace. Because as we know, he's very like passionate, very aggressive, wears his emotions on his sleeve. Is very impulsive and reckless. He doesn't know, like, he grapples very much with how to adapt in times of peace. And so that's why him having this project of figuring out what to use in place of Mako was good for him. It's just we need a better solution than fossil fuels. Yes, I also wish he didn't have to leave Marlene. I understand the his reasoning that he felt like she was keeping him from atoning. It's just she needed her father. Like, as much as I love Cloud and Tifa, like, yeah, I don't know. I agree though. I could see his guilt being explored at the end of part 3 would be very interesting. The atonement part was in character. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I really am a fan of what they did with his character in Rebirth. So, we just need a better solution than fossil fuels, but... I'm also a raging woke liberal. So... Okay, I think we can talk about Nanaki, and I'm gonna try to be brief. Okay, so... in Nanaki's story, he deals a lot with this, this presence he calls Gilligan. He names Gilligan. It comes every now and then. And it's like this, creature in his heart that's, like, filled with, like, blackness. Like, darkness, I should clarify. It's, like, filled with darkness, and it's very much tied to... him knowing that he's going to outlive everyone and prematurely fearing the loss. But we'll get deeper into that because he is figuring that out during his episode. So he returned to Cosmo Canyon. He was, you know, heralded as a hero. And he figured it was time to do what Bugen said and see with his own eyes, hear with his own ears, and remember everything he experiences so he can pass that down, since he's gonna live hundreds of years. So as he was leaving, that was when Gilligan first showed up. He thought it was tied to the path away from his village, so he went back and Gilligan disappeared. By the way, when Gilligan shows up, he starts, like, trembling and, like, losing what's the word I'm looking for? Like, motor function, I would say. Um, yeah, like he would he'd shake, he could hardly breathe. Yeah, so he decided to leave the same way to see if it was tied to the place, and Gilligan didn't show up. So he decided to first go west to Wutai, then to Rocket Town, Corel, Nibelheim, then north, then beyond where men have traveled. So he had a plan. When he went to see Yuffie, it talked about how he related to Yuffie a lot because he's mentally her age. And he can relate to wanting to be seen as an equal by the adults and wanting to prove yourself. And he found her which we'll talk about in Yuffie's section, when she was dragging a boy who contracted geostigma. His name was Yuri. Yuffie was telling them that her idea that they could find materia to cure it, and at that time they called it the Midgar pox, not the geostigma. They started calling it the geostigma later. Yeah. He had his doubts. He felt like that wouldn't work, and he told her that, so she scolded him. He stayed for a few days and helped, but he mostly observed to commit this to memory. Yeah, a lot of this is, a lot of his story, is him observing both humans and animals. So he can, like, remember, with humans specifically, he needed to watch and remember their changes, the rise and fall of civilizations, and pass down that knowledge. Yuffie asked him to leave Wutai to go travel the world to learn more about the disease. And as he left, Gilligan came back, and he tried to focus on what it could be and what it could mean. He saw faces of his people, then he vaguely recognized a face he couldn't name. Then he saw Yuffie's face, and he feared that they would all die. So he's very much tied to that, to the fear of outliving everyone he cares about. Yeah. And Gilligan gave him paralyzing dread about that. So because of the stigma showing up, he changed his plans and decided to go to Midgar first. But when he passed south of Mount Nebel, he found a forest he never knew existed, so he went in and he got lost. And this is where things get really, really interesting. Like, this was one of my favorite sections, definitely. Like, I would say the Shinra one and this one, probably. So he got lost and he heard a gunshot and found a monster over a 10-year-old boy. Yes, it's such a good part. So feel free to put in as much input as you'd like. Yeah, so the creature looked like a bear with a very long tail. So Red rescued the boy and then faced the monster, which the boy said was a Nibby bear, and the weak point was the throat. Another gunshot came and hit the bear's throat, and it died. He mercy shot the bear in the head too, and it was the boy's father. He pointed his gun at Nanaki, but the boy told him not to shoot because he saved him. He wanted to take him home, and it was already starting to call him Red, and which Nanaki did not like because Hojo named him that. So that's very understandable. The man recognized him as being he had a bounty on him from Shinra. And he knew he could talk, but Nanaki refused to talk to them. Because he did not want to be their friend. Yeah. Because he didn't trust humans unless they earned his loyalty. He left, but he doubled back to spy on them. And he saw they were butchering the bear. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and he talked about how Shinra used to use the Nibby Bear's tails as a stimulant for the soldiers. This will be very important during the Shinra chapter. They used to pay a lot for it, but these days they needed meat more because food was harder to come by. So Nanaki was thinking about how this is just the laws of nature, that the hunter was just doing what he needed to do for his family's survival, so he couldn't blame him. Yeah, and then Bugenhagen once told him the difference between monsters and animals was what they did with their kills. Animals feed, monsters kill, then look for more victims. I thought that was very interesting. It's like, what separates monsters from animals if you're killing for survival or if you're killing for the sport? By the way, I have very complicated feelings about hunting, but I will not get into that right now because it's not that relevant. Killing the bears only for their tails made them monsters. Killing to feed others was the natural order. Okay. And he thought about, like, since he could live with the humans, he never needed to, hunt to eat. He just did it to see that he can, so he's like, I must be a monster too, by that definition. Then the, like, 2 cubs of this Nibby bear, came to the clearing to wake their dead mother. Nanaki remembered that the man was gonna come back. So he urged the cubs to leave, and they didn't, so he took one by the scruff, the other followed him. And it's in this section he ended up taking care of these Nibby bears. So they like sleep next to him, and like at first he didn't want to get attached to them. He didn't want them to get attached. Yeah, he didn't want them to get attached. But he felt this instinct to protect them. So he decided to live with them and to get them like back on their feet, get them to become more autonomous and learn to hunt. Yeah, intent is key, definitely. Yeah. So this was animal time for him. He lost track of time. Like he learned new things in his time in the forest. And he sometimes remembered that he had a mission to do, but he loved this life, he didn't want to leave. Yeah, more and more hunters came, so he had to teach Baz and Lin, those were the cubs, he named them Baz and Lin, how to avoid humans. Sometimes he'd see Gilligan, but this time he'd see Baz and Lin's face while he's dealing with this. But since he figured out that like Gilligan was a personification of his fears, he began to fear it less. But of course that life soon came to an end because they became more independent, they left him for longer periods. But he like felt sad about that, but he knew that that was just the way. That was just the way the circle of life happens. Yeah, and then they were completely on his own for a few weeks. But then one day he heard Baz getting shot, and he saw that same hunter boy. Baz was waiting for Lin. Yeah, the boy saw Nanaki and called him, but instead he spoke to the boy, and told the boy that they had to obey the laws of the forest. The boy misunderstood and grabbed the gun. Before Nanaki could stop him, Lemon appeared. He hit the boy and he lay still. The bears came for him and Nanaki protected him. And in the process, they ended up clawing his back and then immediately regretted it and cried for their mom, backed away in shame. He told them to leave. The hunter dad came. Nanaki hid. There were others. And Elena showed up. Who had a vial which she gave to the boy. I don't remember what that vial was for. Okay. He didn't know why Elena was there, but he heard her take out her phone and say that they at least found one and they'll come back tomorrow. When he returned to the clearing, Baz and Lin fled in shame, but they eventually approached him to help lick his wounds. And he guessed that Elena was after the Nibby Bears. Ooh, okay. Okay, in the middle of the night, he woke up, saw that they were gone. He instantly got worried because they're not nocturnal. So he went to search. He thought he heard a gunshot and felt fear. That was when Gilligan came back. It had been a while since Gilligan showed up. So he forgot how to deal with it. And usually usually Baz and Lin were around so he could focus on them actually being alive to help get him out of Gilligan's clutches, I guess you could say. But they weren't around. So he had to force himself to keep moving, and he followed the hunter's trail and found their settlement while Gilligan was still with him. He saw Baz and Lin hanging from a wooden beam over a fire, and that their tails were missing. Yeah, Gilligan was gone, a calm came. There were 3 cabins and the sound of celebration. And he recognized the human side of him that wants revenge kicks in because animals don't feel revenge, which was interesting. Okay. Oof. What snapped him out of it initially was hearing a baby crying. And that snapped him out of it, thinking, like, there's a family there that doesn't deserve his anger. So he needed to keep it at bay. So he was torn between this protective instinct with the Nibby Bears and wanting revenge, but also realizing that there are humans there and that there's a family. Like, the interesting thing about Nanaki's character is he has both animal qualities and human qualities. So he both acts as a bridge, but also feels divided and torn in 2 different directions. His character is so interesting. That's why I really liked this part. Okay, then gunfire came. He realized they died. Oh yeah, he realized that the bears died some time ago, and he was imagining their cries. And that was when he began to see red. And he couldn't tell the humans apart. He just charged and fought. A shot hit his cheek, and then it was all a blur until he was shot. The boy screamed that he just wanted to be Nanaki's friend. And when he came to, he saw Vincent. So Vincent showed up. Yeah. So Vincent was on his own journey. And then he saw a Shinra helicopter and followed it to the settlement. Elena was searching for something. Then they came out with the wounded boy. The Nibby Bears came that night. They shot the Nibby Bears. Elena found what she was looking for and left. So the tails. Vincent was watching, wondering what she was doing when Nanaki showed up. And he was the one who shot Nanaki because Nanaki lost control. He chased out the hunters using his chaos form. Walker of 2 worlds, you could say. Yeah, definitely. Then he treated Nanaki and waited. Nanaki asked if he killed anyone and was relieved to hear that no, he did not. Vincent told him they took the bears. Nanaki said it was okay because it was the law of the forest. And he was very, very confused at this point. I mean, he was breaking out of animal time and just was dealing with a lot, so he felt like sharing his story with Vincent. And he asked Vincent what he did wrong, and Vincent answered that he'll eventually have an answer, but as time passes, the answer will keep changing because there isn't just one answer. Not a very satisfying one, but this is Vincent we're talking about. It didn't satisfy him, so Vincent added that he'll be wrong if he's convinced he's got the right answer, so he's never meant to know what is right. Doing nothing worked for Vincent as an atonement, then he left the cabin and Nanaki followed. Vincent's such an interesting character. Okay. He wanted to go with Vincent, and Vincent asked why. Nanaki thought about how he didn't want to be alone. Vincent said, okay, you want to come because of all the wrong reasons, so he dipped. Nanaki realized there was no point dwelling on what he should have done because he can't change the past, only the future. What mattered was remembering. That was the only answer he had at the time. So from there he went to Rocket Town. He saw Sid working on the airship. Sid helped with his healing process. And this is when he found out that he actually spent 2 years in the forest. So he really lost track of time. Sid also was surprised that 2 years had passed because he had been consumed by building the airship. Yeah, he also just missed Barret. Sid was nearly done with the airship, so he invited him for a test flight. And that gave him perspective that the world is smaller than he thinks. And seeing it all in front of him made him realize that it is possible for him to see and remember everything. Okay, they saw Yuffie. Nanaki felt guilty for not keeping the promise. Yeah, she had him join her to look for Meteor, even though his opinion on that did not change. But he knew that upset her, so he said he would do what he can to help. They went like north? Yeah, they went to a cave in the north, and she admitted that there probably isn't any, but because people were counting on her, she would keep trying. Because the point is to keep the hope alive. She knew that the stigma had something to do with the Lifestream, and only those who are depressed and give up on life catches it. Yeah. And he realized that he lived his life in the cycle of life and death, remembering and understanding. Yeah. And his time with, like, around people and animals helped him gain wisdom. Gilligan kept showing up. And then in the Forgotten Capital, he ran into Vincent again. And Vincent's idea of Gilligan was that the thought of eventual loss and grief terrifies him, but he'll eventually get used to it. Gilligan is from a future he doesn't know enough to fear. Then he had him imagine all the people and things he cares about only exists inside of him. And when he did imagine that, Gilligan awoke. So he's like, okay, I can see where it's coming from. Oh yeah, and then he imagined the last scene of OG, but he imagined he was alone because of outliving everyone. So Vincent lectured him and said, like, he should try imagining a future where he isn't alone, maybe with kids. So he made a deal with them. This is wholesome. I love this. They made a deal where they meet at Midgar once a year to hear stories. Vincent can't die, so it's perfect. So it is very interesting that like the two characters that Nanaki, like from the party that Nanaki connects with during this chapter, are Yuffie and Vincent. Yuffie because he's at the mental age, and Vincent because Vincent is also doomed to wander the planet for, well, for him forever. But for Nanaki, it's for hundreds of years. Yeah. So I actually, yeah, I loved Nanaki's story because it's interesting to me, like, the perspective of someone who's lived with humans and has also lived with animals. Like, I feel like it gives you like a unique sense of wisdom, but it's, you know, something that can be applicable in real life, because something that I have been mulling over a lot is this idea that you need to be a bridge. So like I have a lot of friends who are people of color and are queer. And like a lot of them are like biracial. And like there's like a lot of nuance to that. And then it's like I'm a queer woman, but I'm also white. So it's like, yeah, I'm in the privileged caste, I'm in the upper caste because I'm white, but I'm still a woman and I'm a queer woman. So it's, you know, still deal with bullshit that straight white men don't. And so it's like I've been grappling a lot with how I can be a bridge. A bridge for people of color, for minority groups, to, you know, pull them up with me instead of kicking down the ladder. So it's like, you know, hearing his story, and like it's the same thing for like black men, for example, since like we live in a patriarchy where men get respected more, but they're still the lowest caste because they're black, that they need to be a bridge. So it's like you gotta like think about this. How can you be a bridge instead of burning the bridge as soon as you cross it? And like that's like Nanaki's chapter makes me think about that a lot, because he's a bridge between humans and animals, because he has both perspectives. Yes, I agree, Cam. The human side made him compassionate enough to then take care and raise the bears. Yeah, he felt like sort of a maternal instinct, I would say. That was really interesting to read about. But it's also just like him deciding to go out into the world like that, to experience life and to remember everything. I think is just genuinely good advice I would give to anybody. Like, I have not been shy about my experiences abroad and how much I recommend to people to live in another country and to go see the world, because it really does do wonders for your brain and for your perspective. I would not be the person I am today if I didn't live in Guatemala and then live in Korea. And then also visit Japan and the Philippines. It's important. Ooh. Okay. Any other thoughts you guys want to share in the comments? I think I want to get another no bake and refill my water. So feel free to talk amongst yourselves while I go do that. Okay. Let's see what you guys said. Yes, I loved the Vincent part at the end. And them deciding to have their yearly yap sessions at Midgar. Doesn't feel like the story talks down to the audience here, and I loved Nanaki's arc of reckoning with his past behavior and his lingering complicated feelings with his nature. Definitely. Definitely. We know that what Nanaki does hundreds of years later, but what's Vincent gonna do? Asking the right questions. Scratch that, Vincent's gonna beg Nanaki to play Queen's Pawn. Okay. I think it's Yuffie time. Oh. Huh, this is when my first pen ran out. No, second pen. Second pen ran out. There's so many notes. Okay. Okay, so it starts at the Forgotten Capital. I think that'd be a good question to ask me at the end. I'll answer that at the end. Okay. So it starts in the Forgotten Capital after the final battle. Barret gave the materia to Cloud and Yuffie protested. She asked for some because the reason why she joined them in the first place was for materia. Okay, I'm not gonna go into detail, but it's a very Yuffie-like interaction, I should say. Yeah. So, Yuffie insisted her dream was to use materia to help rebuild Wutai. Cloud made the excellent point. He decided to, like, give her the materia, but hold on to half of it for safekeeping. And he would let her have the healing materia because the combat materia would not help with rebuilding. And he said that he's used to handling the dangerous stuff, so he felt like he should keep a hold of the combat materia. She said, what if there are monsters? So he said that if there are, to call them, and he would work something out. God, I just love Cloud. I love Cloud before he, like, has his relapse. Like, it's just, like, you could just see, like, his optimism, but also, like, he is smart. He is smart, he is strategic, and he does think of others. He is considerate. It's just, you know, he's got complex PTSD, so we can be kinder to him. Okay, so she eventually agreed, and she was expecting a hero's welcome when she came back to Wutai. But she realized, like, she only knew. Yes, he could spell apparently. She only knew the parts that she was involved with, so she regretted not hearing how it started. And she went straight to her father's house first. And he told her Wutai was in trouble and everyone needed to pitch in and help. She was taken aback that he didn't ask about her journey, and that there wasn't a hero's welcome. She told him her story anyway. And he, like, looked at her suspiciously, and he said that they knew about Sephiroth and Shinra being at odds with each other and chaos happening. His guess, like, his theory was that the cosmos got angry and sent Meteor, but the planet released the Lifestream to destroy it. And he said no one mentioned Yuffie and her friends. And he told her to not go around telling people that she was involved, because the live stream hit them pretty hard because the buildings were old, like I said at the beginning of the stream. And like people were looking for someone to blame. Yeah, okay, so she noticed a lot of people were injured. And I actually love this arc for her. He said there was little that they could do for those who are severely injured, and she said, no, you're wrong about that. And she showed him the healing materia that she had. So she ended up becoming the healer for the town instead of being a materia hunter. And as much as she wanted to brag, she realized it was more important that she help these patients than have that gratification. Oh yeah, and like it takes a lot of spiritual energy to use this materia, and since she was using it all day every day, it really wore her out. So she would always like pass out at the end of the night. But one night the sound of banging woke her up, and it was her father nailing her into her room. And he was like, how dare you keep something like that to herself. And then later, a young woman kicked the wall and called her a dumbass because she brought the sickness from Midgar, and Yuri's mom became sick because of her. She had no idea what they were talking about. People came to throw stones at the building, and then someone called for her, and it was Yuri. He like claimed that they used to hang out together when they were kids, but she didn't remember him. But she remembered that it was his mom who was sick, so she asked about the mom. And he described the stigma, and he said that he knew it wasn't her fault, and that he was gonna get her out. Yeah, they had to get out of there because like her father knew that she broke out. Let's see. They ran into a monster. Oh yeah, and then she finally remembered him because when they were kids, they were attacked by large bugs. Yuri ran away, but she didn't, so she got stung a lot and was bedridden for 3 days. Yeah. Okay, yeah, she realized that he packed for a journey and even packed a shuriken for her. Yeah, okay. So he filled her in about the disease. You know, her dad didn't tell her what was going on. He just nailed her in, which fuck him for that. Yeah, they just got news the day before about the disease and that it came from Midgar. Yeah, it is. Okay. And the only person they knew went to Midgar was Yuffie, so they blamed it on her. And they had a meeting, and she felt like it was ridiculous that she was being blamed because she hadn't even seen Yuri's mom and didn't know who the other sick people were, and she herself wasn't even sick, so it was just silly to blame it on her, and plus fucked up. They said that she must have carried the disease, and Yuri said that they could prove that it wasn't her. Her motivation was about her. She wanted her name to be cleared, so he called her out and said that they should find a cure, not someone else to blame, that they should be thinking of others. And he reasoned with her that if she found it, she'd be apologized to, and that they would finally come to respect her. She knew who was right, but also wanted to know, like, who was really to blame. So he played the mom card as he should, it's his right, that she's not going to live much longer, so he needed her help, so she agreed. They started looking in the materia caves, because he had a theory that there's a materia that could cure it. He asked if she knew anyone who'd know, and he brought out a phone, so she decided to call Tifa. And then talked to Cloud. They hadn't found materia, but filled her in with how bad it was over there. It appeared immediately after the Lifestream stopped Meteor. So, it was Snow and King's husband, yes. Let's see. Okay, they were attacked by a monster on the way out of a cave. After Yuffie defeated it, Yuri noticed on the ground where the monster's fireball landed, because this monster could spit out fireballs. Very cool. And made a depression, and there was some liquid with an evil aura coming out of this depression. Yuffie said that they should go, but the water quickly rose and covered them. They had sense to mark their path through the cave, so they followed the markers and found their way out. But when she was out, she realized that Yuri wasn't there, so she doubled back and found him not far from the entrance. He was collapsed. There was no strength. He told her to leave him, but she wouldn't listen. And the black slime came out of his mouth. She said, "You can't die out here," so she dragged him out. Let's see. That was where Ren found them. Liquid Depression is the name for my drink corner. Okay, yeah, that's when Red found her. Oh yeah, at one point they made Yuri laugh, and that was when the black stuff was no longer coming out of his mouth. So that was a clue. Okay. Nanaki told a story about how a merchant was giving away phones, but he couldn't work it because he doesn't have opposable thumbs. So Yuffie's like, "I want the phone then, because it's no use to you." And so they started to fight it. And Yuri then told her to take his because he got it in Midgar. And that was when it clicked for Yuffie. She's like, "You were in Midgar, it was you." Yeah, he apologized and thinks that he brought the stigma to Wutai and it affected his mom and her friends. So he thought that if he found a cure, it wouldn't matter who was to blame. We all know it wasn't him to blame. It was Sephiroth, but, you know, they didn't have that information. Yeah, so his story was his mom got sick with something else months before. Good point, he can hold cards but not use a phone. Okay. Square Enix needs to explain. Yeah, so he went to Midgar to find materia to cure his mom, but the only way would be like if Shinra would give him some. But when he came was when Meteor appeared. The company was in disarray, but he was told that since it was military equipment, it wasn't for sale. He was in his hostel in the slums when the Lifestream came. He fought his way topside and just past sick people. He realized he needed to go back to Wutai, so when he came back, he lied to his mother, saying that he went to the Gold Saucer instead, because he didn't want to tell her he was looking for materia just to come back with nothing. Nanaki said the material like that probably didn't exist anyway. Yuffie lectured him and even flicked him on the nose. So when they came back to Wutai, they saw a new building being like roughly constructed on like the outskirts. Yuffie had Nanaki investigate. She flicked him again to get him to go. Yuri laughed, and he looked better. So she thought that if they keep making him laugh, that would make him feel better. Nanaki needs a phone so he can talk to the manager. Okay, so Nanaki found out that it was to quarantine. Yuffie was mad about that. She felt like that didn't make any sense to just leave them to rot at the edge of town and not even try to treat them. I agree. Let's see. So she spent 2 weeks caring for them, but despite the quarantine, new patients kept coming. Eventually her dad came to apologize for being hasty with her because the disease didn't seem to be contagious. She didn't want Nanaki around the disease, so that was part of the reason why she told him to go look. Yuri had a theory that the people who got sick were either already sick before or injured when the Lifestream hit, so they were expecting to die. So, like, they're already getting closer to the answer. He himself thought he was gonna die when he fell in the cave and was covered with the weird water. So that was when Yuffie guessed that the source was the water. So she asked the patients if they came across dark water. They noticed that it tasted different. They weren't worried because their well water usually tasted different after earthquakes, so they didn't think anything of it. She told her father to write down rules. Number 1, be cautious of all sources of water. Try boiling all water before drinking and washing. 2, don't think about how you were going to die. Another moment that made me giggle, I thought you were gonna say, so Yuffie has Nanaki investigated. Okay. Okay, so for a year she alternated between caring for patients in Wutai and traveling to search for a cure. She figured out the water was the vector and people got sick when their will to live failed. Yuri's mom died. Another year went by with no cure. Scientists were coming to the same, to similar conclusions that Yuffie did. She runs into Sid and Nanaki again. Yeah, Sid accidentally left Nanaki behind, so he joined her to look in the Materia cave. He kept acting shifty, so she asked him to spit it out. He said he still thought finding a Materia cure was useless. She thought about how he didn't understand that her search was meant to give Yuri and the others in Wutai hope. Okay, so I really liked Yuffie's story because I felt like a lot of maturity happened during this time. She assumed the role of a healer. She started to think more of others instead of herself. You know, as much as we love Yuffie, she, needed to go through some maturity because she was a teenager. Like, come on. Plus, her dad is just fucked up for nailing her inside her own room without explaining why. Like, fuck him forever for that. Let's see. But it's also, we need to acknowledge that Yuffie is very, very resourceful, and she's very smart. The fact that she figured out, made the connections between the water and the thoughts of death and despair and giving up on life were what caused geostigma. Well, we know it was Sephiroth, but, she was very close to the truth, that she figured that out on her own before the scientists did. She needs to give props. I think, people, misunderstand her a lot and look down on her because she is kind of a comic relief character in some ways because she is so extra and she can be very self-centered. She's very smart. And I also think, her youth, lends itself to people mischaracterizing her so much. God, I just realized the next one is the Shinra section, and it's a big section. Anyway, I also appreciated that, like, you know, she knew that there was no materia to cure it, but she was just doing it anyway because she felt like providing hope was more important, to keep people from despairing about death and giving up. So, I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts about this before we move on to the Shinra section, because the Shinra chapter was like over 50 pages, so it actually took me 2 days to write down the notes. I'm gonna try to be more brief with this, but oof. Cloud's will to live, fading does not equal wants to die to be with Earth. Yes. It's more complicated than that and is a disservice to his character to reduce it to that. No, you're good. You're good. It's because it's infuriating that people think he's like a suicide case when he's not. And it was like mostly triggered by Denzel getting sick and him not figuring out the cure. Like, he couldn't find the cure, and I think that led to his despair. Unfortunately, we don't get a chapter from Cloud's perspective. So we can only speculate, but like, there's no evidence that he wants to die to be with Earth. God, there's not much left on the... Okay. Okay. Let's get to the Shinra stuff. Okay, the Shinra section starts off with Sung. When he was in the Temple of the Ancients. And, like, talks about his... Do we need to have a second stream? I'm probably just gonna go over. Because I don't need to leave until 3:30 to go to a cat sit. It's 1:40 right now my time, so I think we'll be okay. Yeah, I think we'll be okay. Yeah, he like reminisces on like his mission to monitor Earth with the goal of getting her to help Shinra. And he couldn't use force because of how Ifalna's death came to happen. I found a retcon. That it was according to this story, it was Aerith who approached him first to thank him for protecting her, and instead he told her the truth. And couldn't lie to her for some reason, even though that made her stay away from him. I think that was a retcon in Remake. I think Remake retconned that. It's a mild retcon, so I'm not mad about it. It's just interesting. Yeah, things became different when she got involved with Avalanche. So that was when he, like, acted more as a villain and did more Turk things. Yeah. But when he thought he was gonna die, he was surprised that she still cried over him because he didn't expect anybody to do that. And then after she left, he was just waiting for death to come, and instead, Reeve came in the form of Kate Sith. And he was operating two Kate Siths at the same time. I'm assuming the one that went after Cloud and the others to help them escape. And then the one that went to Sung. So Reeve told him that he was gonna let Cloud have the black materia because he felt like that was better than Sephiroth having it. So, Song agreed, and he felt like Cloud was the key to something. Yeah, he said that they found out that he was a spy, but he was staying with them because he's interested in them. Things got fuzzy for him after that. He was put on a ship with former Turk members. We like learn more about former Turk members in this chapter. It's very interesting. Okay, so he became fully conscious when he was in a room in Junon. While he was recovering, Aerith died. Cloud gave the black materia to Sephiroth, who cast Meteor, and it would take less than a week to hit. Yeah, the Sister Ray was airlifted from Junon to go to the Shinra building. They thought they could fire pure Mako energy using the huge materia into the northern cave where Sephiroth's real body was. They thought that if they destroyed the body, that Meteor would vanish. We know how that turned out. Yeah, got a weapon to retaliate, destroying most of the Shinra building. That was a huge blow to Reno and Rude, because the Shinra building was their place to have R&R and take a load off, where they could have a break from work. So it was like a home to them. So the Shinra building being destroyed was like a huge blow on them. And then Rufus was missing. And they've like, people thought that his survival, like that he wouldn't survive because his office took a direct hit from Diamond Weapon. Yeah. Upper management, including all the executive directors, couldn't be confirmed, like if they were dead or alive. So, organization fell apart. And then most employees left since Meteor was coming. They were trying to get to Rufus to see if they can find him alive. I will figuratively kick anyone who claims Song saying Cloud is the key as evidence of clearance. Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, Song showed up and they thought he was killed in action. Okay. So then we cut to Rufus's perspective. So, he like rolled under the desk for cover, and then he saw a switch marked with a letter L for emergencies. When he pressed it, the floor gave way and he like went down this air duct, this chute. And he was laughing the whole way. And it brought back a memory of when he was 5. He woke up in the middle of the night. He saw that his father was home, and his father was telling him about renovation for his office. And he asked a very valid question of like, what if you need to escape? And his dad like laughed in his face and belittled him and called him a loser. Said that no one would attack him because his office is 70 floors up and no one could get that far because of their security. But he said, but I'll make a panic room for you for when you're president. If you can earn it, that will be a room for you. And I will make it easy for you to find. I'm gonna mark it with an L for loser. Rufus's survival is something that needed to be explained because Advent Children spends almost no time explaining that. Yeah, well then, you can only explain so much in that movie, so I get it. But yes, this chapter is very in-depth about that. He goes through a lot. Yeah, so it was marked L for loser, and he was grateful to his 5-year-old self. The shoot was long. It gave him time to reflect on his life. He realized he always wanted his father's validation, and wanted to surpass him. He went about it the wrong way by rebelling and being disloyal, which only made his father angry. At the end, he slammed into the wall, into a small white room at high speed. He broke several ribs. Let's see. There was a closet and a steel door. The steel door had a small input panel. He didn't know the code. In the closet, there was a box that said 2L. There were potions, packages containing conventional medicine inside. Magic potions could degrade and become poison over time, so he didn't use those. So he took a synthetic painkiller instead. He took a lot of painkillers. And he was frustrated that he was stuck there and couldn't organize a response and be the leader. So a huge thing that I respected about this section is how much Rufus takes leadership seriously. Like, he's a very good, very natural leader and very thorough. Like, we'll get into that. I had a fuzz in my hair. That's embarrassing. Okay. So Reno and Rude checked the president's office 3 times and felt like he was alive, but they didn't know where to look. Meteor was coming. There were gale force winds. They ordered rescue workers to search. Couldn't find him. They found a door that leads to passages, usually for executive use. Rude found a section in the wall that was a different color. Rufus kept trying combinations. Couldn't figure it out. He had a lot of ruminations about the afterlife. He didn't want to die, though. There was one sequence of numbers he didn't try that he thought of first, but he felt like it was another way his father had another one over him, but it didn't matter anymore. Reno and Rude couldn't figure out the panel, were about to give up. When the panel slid downward, they saw the small room. Yes, we'll get to that dream. We'll get to that. Yes, so Rufus came out. They noticed the code was the same one Shinra used for all of his devices, and it was Rufus's birthday. Seeing him alive restored Rude's confidence. He found a hospital worker to get him to Rufus. He saw Yuffie on the way, talking on a phone. And he decided not to engage with her. Let's see. He told the workers to put him in the best room. One of them recognized Rufus, but was shushed, so it was kept under wraps that it was the president that they were treating. They took him to Calm. The hospital was overrun, so it was no longer safe for Rufus. So when he came, the Turks moved him to a company-owned home in Calm. He refused to use a helicopter to leave the city because running away looked bad. Let's see. Song ordered them to organize the evacuation of Midgar. And told them they had to operate on the assumption that the crisis will be averted since Meteor was coming. There were already storms and earthquakes. that was interesting to like hear about the effects of Meteor coming closer. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely that. There's definitely that. Oh shit. Computer's running low on storage space. We're gonna have to do that shit. Hold on a second. It's gonna stop recording if I don't do this. Second. Then the 27th was FF8 Stream 5. Okay. It's alright. I just need to free up space, which means I need to move some things to my hard drive. But I can talk while that's happening. Okay. Okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay. So this is when we run into the former Turks. They saw their former commander, Barret, in Midgar with their other old comrades. Because one time the Turks acted against the company. Yeah, I'm very long-winded. It was fun having you here. I'll see you next time. I hope you have a great night. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see you around. Thank you for joining in. Let's see. Yeah, so one time the Turks acted against the company, and that was to save the world. They saved Verdot and his daughter then. There was a lot of camaraderie in the Turks then, and it felt like that now as they came together to organize evacuation. So they, like, re-established connection with these guys. Yeah, after that incident, President Shinra and the other executives tried to disband the Turks, but Rufus saved their lives and their jobs, so they were in his debt, which they did repay by saving his life. That was great context to hear, like, why they're so loyal to Rufus, is he literally saved them, like, saved their lives and their jobs. Okay, so the Meteor was defeated by the Lifestream. Reno and Rude were in the Shinra building directly below Meteor when it happened. The Lifestream smashed everything, and the only safe place for them was the bathroom stalls. That was interesting. Just them hanging out in the bathroom stalls while the world goes to shit. The morning after, Rufus asked the Turks what their plans were. He ordered them to go to Midgar to evaluate the situation to gather allies. They needed information. And this is when Rufus was wheelchair bound. The first time, I should say. They split into two groups. Song and Elena went to find intel, Reno and Rude to search for allies. Other Turks scattered across the planet to relay intelligence to Calm. That is a good question. That's a very good question. Okay. Yeah, they anticipated people blaming Shinra. They made it to Sector 0, was blocked by crowds of people asking for info and aid. They were upset that the people called Shinra evil and then said the company had to fix everything. I thought that was kind of funny. Song and Elena went to Wall Market. Yeah, people were fleeing in droves because of the rumor that Midgar was going to collapse. And people were even throwing rocks at the Turks. So Elena said we should change clothes. To be like incognito, I guess. Okay. We can free up space now. Okay. Oh yeah. Rufus the Truffle from FFVII. Actually, Elena was about to confess to Sung in a bar. He was like, yeah, keep yapping because with your drivel, because then we could blend in. That part made me laugh so hard. But he was focusing on unconscious dude. He noticed something was wrong with him and he found that he was covered in black goo and that he was dead. Reno and Rude wrote a notice in the Shinra building to get off the plate, walk down the train tracks to the slums. And that there were no supplies at Shinra because their operations are suspended. That turned out to be a lie, but we'll get to that. Refugees went to Calm because the buildings were fine. Oh yeah, Rufus was nervous because he's used to having security. But like the fact that there were a lot of refugees there and him being separated by only a wall like made him nervous. And he regretted refusing security when Sung offered to assign him security detail. Let's see. And yeah, he was right. But like part of it was like he felt the Shinra building was a symbol of his father. He wanted to become his own man and to strike out on his own. So he felt like he needed to rebuild the world instead of hide. Oh, okay. Then shit hits the fan. Shit hits the fan. Because intruders break in. While the Turks were heading back to Calm. And they figured the Lifestream had something to do with the geostigma. Yeah. Rude suggested going to Sector 5 the next day to get weapons. Okay, yeah. So Rufus was surrounded and was held up at gunpoint by a shotgun. They knew he was the president. I love Rufus. Okay. he had his pistol hidden in his clothes. But he knew he couldn't use it because he could hear people downstairs, so he knew like he would be surrounded, plus he's injured, so there wasn't much he could do. But he asked them what they were gonna do after they dealt with him. This was badass. And he told them there are two kinds of people, those who command and those who obey. When things go wrong, the leaders are punished, the people left behind have no one to follow, which causes chaos and things get worse. Yeah, he asked the person who acted like he was the leader, but actually wasn't the leader, what future he could promise the mob. And he said someone needs to find a place for all the refugees because Calm can't hold them all. He knew they didn't want to turn into another Midgar. Yeah, and he's like, what if the weather turns bad? You have to think things long term. Making it till the end of the day is not enough, because that's what the guy was saying. They have to think of food, clothing, housing. They have to think about what to do about these refugees. You know, there's a lot of logistical issues they have to figure out, and they can't just, like, figure it out. They have to have a plan. He noticed a man in the navy jacket, and he figured out that that guy was the true leader. And the guy asked him what his plan was. It comes back to Reno and Rude. They noticed Calm looked different. They noticed the house was broken into, and that it was being turned into a hospital. They couldn't find Rufus. They didn't want to catch the stigma, so they left. Sung suspected he was kidnapped. They were trying to find witnesses. Couldn't find any. 2 weeks passed since Rufus was taken. They took his gun. They drugged him. He woke up in a new place, and the leader was the guy in the navy jacket. His name was Mutin. I want to say it's how it's pronounced, but I like to say Mutton. So I'm just gonna call him Mutton. But he owned a villa. So he was at Mutton's villa. And he figured out he was in the basement. So something that I really appreciate about Rufus during this is he's really good at deductive reasoning. He's a very smart guy. So he had fetters around his ankles. The room was built like a prison, and he knew he had no choice but to wait until the Turks found him. There was a housekeeper given a meal, so he was still being treated okay in that regard. A doctor came for a checkup and left him with some meds. And then Mutton came every few days to ask him about his plan to develop an area near Midgar. So, yeah, Edge was built under Rufus's direction with this guy. He had already planned on sharing this with the Turks before he got kidnapped. It sounds like Big Brother. Kinda does. Yeah, so he had planned on sharing this with the Turks, but he needed their data first, and that was why he sent them out. But because we know how that turned out, he could only give the bare bones of the plan. So first establish a new town east of Midgar where it was flattest to make construction easier, using materials salvaged from Midgar. The Sector 5 storehouses had welding supplies and construction equipment. And he only revealed the plan bit by bit because he felt that Mutton would kill him once he had everything that he needed, so he needed to have that insurance that he'd be kept alive. And they kept coming to an impasse because they couldn't trust each other, you know, rightfully. Yeah, so then back to the Turks. They were no closer to finding him. They set up a base and company housing in Sector 5 and let people believe that Midgar was collapsing so that there'd be less of them. But they also wanted to keep the Shinra arsenal and the secrets away from the public. So they perpetuated that narrative. Reno found out the military forces from Junon took over HQ and about 100 men, and the leader was a lieutenant. The warehouses had a gate with an access code. In emergencies, the code changed to one only high-level clearance people know. But when they arrived, they saw that it was already open. Building 5 was open too, which held fossil fuels for emergencies. They found all these volunteers. The leader of the volunteers got permission from an officer, Kyle Gate. They heard that the Shinra military were working independent of the company to start reconstruction, and they asked for volunteers. They asked the volunteers to not take too much of the fuel reserves because they needed them. So they went back to work getting weapons, ammo, vehicles, and fuel, and then they decided to change all the access codes. They worked through the night, and after a few hours of sleep, Verdot barged in, and he told them about Lieutenant Kyle Gates was on leave in Calm, but gathered all the soldiers he could find and assumed command. And he held a rally that morning east of Midgar about creating a new city, and there was company machinery there. And Verdot gave him this information to repay his debt to them. My throat's really starting to hurt. Okay. Rude pointed out that Kyle Gate wouldn't have the clearance for the codes, so they were already starting to catch on. Verdot said that this was their lead to the president because the codes must have been given to Kyle Gate from somebody. You're good. You're good. So he shared his intel that Kyle Gate was from a wealthy family. He lost his parents and inherited everything. So he enlisted in the military with the goals of destroying Shinra's enemies and achieving world peace. They figured out that was bullshit because his superiors expressed doubts about his character, since he was brutal and known for taking it too far. And there were rumors that he joined to have a legal outlet for his brutality. So Verdot guessed that Rufus was being held at his villa. Okay. So we cut to Mutt and Kyle Gate. So it is this guy. Was beating Rufus because he needed the new access codes. Of course, Rufus didn't know the new codes. Yeah, and like Rufus deduced that he was a military man and that he was rich. And he was wondering why he didn't know him, because money usually helped promotion. But he figured out that it was because of his character. And like he looked at his surroundings, like where he was being held was furnished with it was crimson, and there were carvings of disturbing images of human monster chimeras. So he could tell by this man's taste that he was not a good guy. Well, also by his actions, but yeah. Yeah, Mutton asked if he had any underlings and where they were. Rufus said that they grabbed him while they were away, so he doesn't know where they are. Then he was interrupted by the housekeeper saying that someone was there to see him. Before he left, he told Rufus construction began that morning and the city would be the new capital of the world and he'll rule it, but Rufus would not be around to see it. And ironically, it was the other way around because of what happened next. So Rufus heard a voice that he recognized, and he heard the sound of gunshots. People were panicking. A fire was spreading upstairs, and someone shouted for him, and it was the guy that held him up by the shotgun. Like that guy. And Rufus figured out that this was a coup. This was not a rescue, it was a coup. Okay, he crawled under the bed, he found metal hooks and barbed whips, and he took it. Plus he was still chained. He was chained to the wall, and he was still injured. Okay, yeah, so a gun faced him. Rufus twisted the barrel upward. The gun fired. They fought. Smoke was entering the room. The man said that if he killed him, he wouldn't be able to get out because of being chained to the wall and the fire coming. He asked if he killed Mutton, which he did, since they grew up together and always treated him like shit. And he held a grudge from Rufus making a fool out of him in front of the guys when he was initially being kidnapped. Okay, so by the time the Turks arrived, the whole villa was on fire. They were asked around for Rufus. Elena found a witness saying a man in his 50s, which described the doctor that treated Rufus, carried a man in a white suit, neck brace, and foot cast. And they knew that that had to be Rufus. Okay, Reno asked for permission to do things the Turk way. Sung granted it, but told him not to harm the construction workers because he felt like the plan for the new city came from Rufus. So cuts back to Rufus. The doctor showed up, pointed a gun at him. Rufus instead tried to shoot the doctor, but found out the gun was empty. So the doctor told him the man hated not reaping the rewards. So when he could finally kill Mutton, he got too excited and unloaded the whole thing on him. The doctor's name is Killmister, which I brought him up earlier. And he used to be an assistant for Hojo. Okay. So he put down the gun. He had a bad feeling. Killmister took out a vial and told him it would knock him out, and if he didn't take a whiff, he'd shoot to injure because he needed him alive. So Rufus cooperated. Well, I'm assuming that the doctor just took Rufus because the wheelchair would have slowed him down. Actually, I think he recovered. I think he recovered enough that he didn't need the wheelchair anymore at that point. This wasn't the first time he was in a wheelchair. I think I need to have a pee break in a second. This is a good time for a pee break. I'll be back in a minute. don't know. I don't know, Dream. Okay. So he woke up in a cargo truck with 9 others, and they all had geostigma. He considered jumping out, but remembered Killmister wanted his cooperation, so that meant he'd be kept alive. If he jumped out in his condition, that was certain death. Shusha was here at the beginning. I could bring him in a minute. So he stopped, Killmister stopped near the coast in front of a cave, partly hidden by rocky outcroppings. Rufus deduced that it was a 3 to 4 hour drive from the villa, or a couple days on foot. Rufus is smart. He herded them by gunpoint, mostly for Rufus, because the patients already trusted him. Inside the cave, they went down a ladder, leaned against a 16-foot high rock face. When they all climbed down, Killmister pulled away the ladder. So there was no way to escape this cave. There were tunnels leading to dead ends. They could pick one to be their room. And they told him to come when they're told and he'll treat them. So this was like a makeshift clinic in a cave. It held hospital cots, clean sheets, and blankets for everyone. The other people were patients in calm, like his patients in calm since they were kids. And he told them that he knew how to cure them, so that was why they came. And he told them not to tell Rufus where they were. His office was near the entrance. He changed Rufus's cast and brace, and he said he needed Rufus for Genova, because he figured out that at the cellular level there were similarities between the infected and the soldiers he used to work on. But he wouldn't reveal all the information to Rufus right then. 3 months went by. He didn't need a brace, and the cast was replaced by a pipe from the Shinra building as a makeshift cane. Edge was being built by the people. No one in specific was in charge, but the doctor wanted to know what the Turks were up to. Okay. The Turks threatened to shoot anyone approaching HQ in the storehouses. They needed materials. Oh yeah, Killmister needed materials and asked him to talk to the Turks when the time comes. He specifically wanted equipment that Hojo used to treat the disease. And he asked again about Genova and where she is. Rufus said that he couldn't find out from down there, so he was like asking to be released. Killmister said he needed a facility since the cave wasn't set up for experiments, and he's like, oh shit, experiments? Rufus asked if he was a doctor or a scientist. In response, Killmister pulled out the gun. Okay, as his ribs healed, he visited other rooms. 4 people were already dead out of the 9. A woman who helped him from the truck was still alive but bedridden. A man was there to comfort her. The doctor said he was low in meds and had to cut back, so the man gave her his dose, but he was wearing off. So Rufus called for the doctor, and he said his stockpile was running low and there weren't deliveries since he arrived. Rufus wondered if... Okay, I didn't write very well here. Oh yeah. Yeah, Rufus is like, stockpile. He's like, did he start collecting before the disease came? Like, it was suspicious. Yeah. Killmister came with the ladder and had him climb up, and then he pulled the gun at him and told him that was as far as he could go. And seeing the daylight hit the doctor's face, he realized the doctor wasn't doing well either. And he said he'd been giving the patients a diluted form of a stimulant to use on the military to help with the pain. And he was using this to treat the symptoms until he could find the cause of the disease. And he himself had been using the stimulant to help him work through the night. And that was when Rufus finally figured out the kind of leverage he could use on him, because he was clearly addicted to the drug. So he asked for a pen and paper to contact the Turks, since they knew where to get the drug. So he had him climb back down and then toss down the pen and paper, and he only wrote down the request for the stimulant because he needed to gain Killmister's trust. And he knew that the Turks would know what to do from there. So he left for Midgar and said he'd give the Turks the note. It should have taken 3 days. Instead, a week passed and they were running low on food. And again, the shitteth hit the faneth at this point. The woman was getting worse. Then the cave flooded. So he warned the others. And he figured that as the water filled, it would boil them up to the top. So he told the others to prepare to evacuate, but they were too weak. So he fetched and carried them towards the entrance, and he dismantled bed frames so that they could use the wood to help them float. Okay. The water stopped rising before they could reach the ledge. So their only hope was rescue from the outside. And only 2 men and that woman were there. Hours passed, they were losing body heat. Then the black water came. Fear took over him and it spread. He thought he was going to die. Yeah. It was trying to get into his mouth. He was trying to keep it from doing that. And then he eventually lost consciousness because it just kept coming and it wasn't relenting. He woke to Killmister apologizing for the delay in lowering the ladder. Only the man and the woman were left, so the Dr. Mercy killed the woman. Yeah, and then the man was the one that was taking care of the woman. I assume they were married. Or dating. Rufus asked for the man's name. His name was Judd, and he told Judd not to do anything yet, because he would handle Killmister. Okay, as he climbed up, pain seized his body. He found he had the stigma. Killmister said it looked like he needed the drug now, but then his gun hand was shot. Someone held him in a chokehold, and at first he thought it was Judd, but he saw that Judd was at the ledge, like, really weak. So then he shouted, "What in the blazes took you so long?" And sorry, boss. So this is when we get the lore that in Shinra's early days, they built this mountain resort as an R&R facility for employees, but the employees preferred the beach, so no one used it. So Rufus, the Turks, Killmister, and Judd made the trip in 2 vehicles. There were already patients at the mountain lodge that the Turks brought over from Calm. A week ago, Killmister came to the Shinra building with the letter. They were suspicious, so they told him to come back the next day, and they trailed him and took the note to Sung. Sung said it was Rufus's handwriting, and they didn't have any other leads, so they decided to give the stimulant to the doctor. Rena followed him to Calm, where he had a small clinic. And they could see that the doctor was addicted. Yeah, because the next day when they gave him the drug, he immediately took it and passed out. So he ordered them to carry the cases. He asked Sung if he knew a place that was remote but not too hard to access to house a lot of patients. Sung thought of the mountain resort. Yeah. And he told them about Rufus's condition, so they had no choice but to take him at his word. And he also said that they were in debt to him because Rufus was still alive because of him. Oh yeah, and they said that they would not tell them where Rufus was until the facility was ready. Then he took them to Rufus. On the way, the storm came that made the flood happen. And they lost sight of him, but Reno found the cave. So Rufus started to take the drug for the pain too and stayed at the resort. Rufus had the idea for the monument to be built. Yeah, okay, people still blame Shinra, but they were gaining trust by providing supplies. Reeve sent heavy machinery from Junon. He was no longer working for Shinra, but the Turks were operating for the greater good, so he didn't interfere. Okay. Killmister said that the stimulant would run out soon, so Rufus approved Elena getting the main ingredient for this stimulant, which was the Nibby bear tails, which is why she was there. Oh yeah, after they distributed the drug to Edge, which drained their supply, they needed pharmacists to produce more of the drug, and that was why they needed to get the Nibby bear tails. Killmister wanted it immediately. He wanted the first priority to keep the resort supplied. Sung knew it was actually for his addiction, but Rufus complied, and he was wondering why Rufus was complying to everything Killmister said. Yeah. So 2 years had passed, since the Lifestream erupted. Rufus went to Killmister to ask about the connection between the stigma and Genova. He said that there was no progress at all, but he's starting to understand the pathology. The first patients were those directly exposed to the Lifestream, and he found this out early on by interviewing patients. The others either lost a loved one or had a near-death experience and contemplated death, and he guessed that happened to Rufus, which Rufus confirmed. It quickly became a pandemic because people feared for the future. Then there was the black water. Many people saw it, others probably came into contact with the contaminated water source, and it can spread anywhere it wants. The black liquid is related to Sephiroth and Genova's mimetic legacy, so their genetic material. He wanted a sample of Genova to do research and asked where she is. He said he didn't know. Killmister asked to have the Turks search, which he said he'd consider. And he was very talkative at this point because he was very high, I guess. And he was talking about how a long time ago, Hojo cut a project that he proposed, so he thought he could try it now and create something more powerful than Sephiroth. Rufus called him out about how he thought that this was about finding a cure, and the doctor said that he doubts that they will ever help those who already have it, but he was free to issue a public warning. Rufus then dipped because he's like, I'm one of the infected people, you dick. The next morning, Killmister was found dead from a gunshot wound. Judd immediately confessed to Sung, but couldn't tell him where he got the gun. But said it was a favor from a friend, so we know who ordered it. Rufus was very cavalier about the news. And then he asked Sung to find and secure any remaining genetic material from Genova to keep it out of other people's hands, including mad scientists or ghosts lurking in the Lifestream. So, This was my favorite section of the book. Because, you know, Rufus did go through a lot, but he was very smart and resourceful about it. And like, it really showed how great of a leader he is, despite being like the successor to a really, really corrupt company. Yeah, that he really like had a lot of the people's interests in mind with the building edge, doing the monument, making sure that people had supplies. But he also like wasn't a pushover and was also very, very smart with like considering how many times he was being held hostage. So this was my favorite section of the book. Very long section. It took me 2 days to take notes. My throat hurts. Yeah, all that is left is Lifestream Black and Lifestream White. Which, like I said at the beginning of the stream, at the end of each episode, it'd have either Lifestream Black or Lifestream White, and it'd be like a page long at the most. Yeah, for Lifestream Black is about Sephiroth in the Lifestream. Him resisting his spirit being dissolved into it. So he decided to make Cloud his nucleus to cling to his consciousness. He wanted to tell Cloud about everything he was doing in the live stream. And he knew that Sephiroth was still in his Cloud's mind, and he would know soon about what Sephiroth was doing. When the live stream erupted, he let the planet have his memories that didn't matter to him. So his childhood, friends, battles before he knew who he really was. At the same time, the core of his spirit and feelings swept the current, causing people to panic. So he decided to leave his own mark. He knew that Cloud would notice, and then he would never disappear as long as Cloud remembered. The smallest fragment of memory of him would be enough to flow through the planet, and with Cloud's memories to help him, he would regain his form. As life on the planet was adjusting to a new normal, he saw shadowy places of the heart and the new spirits in joining the life stream, so he weaponized that. And he realized it was his actions above ground that caused it. So he decided he would turn the entire life stream black. Using the life stream, he floated through the world and left his mark on people where he found them. Despair took them over, which made them happy and spread the darkness even more. He couldn't send his actual spirit on the planet because the planet consumed his form and the memory of it. So there was no anchor for his consciousness. Instead, he found another memory that would work in the form of a young man. And like, you know, as soon as he did that, he remembered that the world of the living is more confining than the freedom he experienced as a pure consciousness. But he knew that he had a mission, so he was willing to go through with that. So he created two others. They weren't quite him, but they were created by his will, and we know it's Kadaj, Laws, and Yazoo. So to quote him, "As they search for Mother, my servants will meet those who knew me, and their spirits will remind me of what I once was. Once I have Mother's power, I will exist fully in the living world. It will not be long now. Even if I am incomplete, it will matter not. Cloud will be there. Cloud will complete me." Just always obsessed. And then Lifestream White. Sorry, I'm just trying to speed it along. Is centered on Earth. Since she was a Cetra, she could retain her selfhood in the Lifestream and choose to dissolve and become a part of it. But she knew... Sephiroth, they have mother? Exactly. But she felt it was too soon to dissolve into the Lifestream because she could feel Sephiroth's threat. And that his will refused to merge. And that he was trying to exert his power in the world of the living. So she had to figure out how to stop him. It was too dangerous for her to get too close. And the one time she did, she learned that the memories of Cloud formed the core of his will. And this part is like another part that certain people quote and run with. And it's like her saying that she loved him as he was a symbol of everything she held dear, so she would protect him. And it's like, you gotta understand, there are multiple types of love. And even if it's romantic love, he's not gonna be with her, she's dead. And he's more concerned about his family. So, like, that's like another part just, it's irritating. It's the fact that she said that she loved him. It's like, well, then did Cloud say that? No, so why are we making this a point? Also, she said that he was a symbol of everything she held dear. Which leads back to no promises to keep, you know what I'm saying? Anyway. Yeah. Okay, so she found more spirits who resisted merging. They weren't like him, but she sensed the same hate and anger that led him to reject the planet and the Lifestream. She tried to relieve them of their anger and free their memories of joy to help them to move on. Their hate would melt away too, and she was pleased to help them, but the amount increased and she knew that her alone could not stop this. So she looked for other Cetra who hadn't yet dispersed to help her. The few that were there responded, and she infused them with her memories and got help, but they weren't enough either. She thought of Cloud and realized she had to stop it at the source, which is on the surface of the living world, and which she obviously can't. Well, she can. In a second. So she says, Cloud will help me. I know he will, but I also know it will end up hurting him. Because the Cloud she knew had a heart that was easily wounded. She tried to think of a way to warn him, but there were other things she always wanted to tell him, but she never knew what to say or how. But unless she found a way to talk to him, there was no use thinking about that. She realized Sephiroth was trying to have a corporal form. She rallied her courage to find out how. He sensed her, chased her, then stopped laughing as she fled and said, "There is nothing you can do." She saw his intentions. He was using others. She thought of doing that too, then thought, even if that's possible, I don't want to appear before Cloud as someone else. I want to see him as he knows me. Oh my god. So, very interesting book. I definitely like related a lot to this book because COVID was not that long ago. So having the main conflict in this book and in Advent Children being a pandemic was very interesting. I mainly appreciated the book though for seeing the development of all these characters and what they did after the events of OG and where the re-trilogy is going to lead up to, leading up to Advent Children. While I don't think it's a perfect book and I don't like the fossil fuels, I think it was very well written. Yeah. My favorite chapter, though, was the Shinra one. I thought it was awesome. Anyway, final thoughts, everyone, because we're almost at 4 hours. Yeah, you were 23 during COVID and blinked, suddenly you were 29. I was 25. And I'm gonna be turning 32 in August. Yeah, that was another thing that made me appreciate Rufus, is how he handled like the evacuation, the pandemic, like, well, I guess maybe not so much about the pandemic, but the edge, creating edge. Anyway, I got very long-winded. It's just this book has a lot to it that I do feel is important for the context of these characters and their development, as well as the conflict leading up to Advent Children, so that we understand the headspace in the movie. Yes, I'm excited for that. That's especially going to help me with the video I'm planning on doing. The Claire thing is mostly just read into way too much, so it's not a criticism either. Yeah. Well, it's just also... like, the shippers kind of ruin everything. It's like, I can't enjoy it. I can't enjoy the story for what it is, because bullshit takes happen. And... here's where I go into, it's not just the Claris. It's also the Clodies. Even though I'm a Clodie. Yeah, it's like the weirdos that say that, like, there's... since sex wasn't implied at all, that means that they are in a sexless relationship. And just in it for the kids is a very bizarre take. And then they don't like Advent Children because they feel like Advent Children is showing a regression in their relationship and like making it seem toxic on purpose. And they don't like that it's showing a realistic relationship because they want it to be like happy ending fairy tale bullshit. And it's like, normal couples go through rough patches. Like I said this before when we watched Advent Children together. It's just... Cloud and Tifa are really shitty communicators because they tend to internalize things instead of communicating them. So that was going to lead to conflict. But once they started communicating with each other and learning to do that, it helped resolve the conflict. And then at the very end, they were able to move on and be a family. So I'm just like... what do you guys want? Like, just the whole take of, like, it's a regression of their relationship. And, like, no, it's a realistic portrayal of a relationship. Like, I don't see where you're not connecting this. So, like, this is, like, where I have to say, it's not just the Claris. I think the Clodies are not as bad of offenders, because Clodies are not defending necrophilia and suicide. And not interpreting it in that way. But this weird narrative that, like, they're in a sexless relationship and that they don't like how their relationship is being portrayed because they go through a rough patch is really weird and delusional too. Yeah. Okay, let me scroll to your earlier question then. Trying to remember where it is. Okay. Well, I guess, you know, I can just turn it over to you guys. What do you like most about the book? If you read the book, if you haven't, what you liked most about what I said during stream, because I did tell about the book. Also, this is a reminder that I highly encourage those of you who haven't read the book to read it. Because it does give really good context into these characters and the headspace that they're in, and their thoughts and their feelings and their different character arcs. Also, it's just I'm like, lately, since I have gotten back into reading, and it's done a lot of good for me, I'm really highly encouraging you all to read, and that's part of the reason why I started this book club in the first place, is to do that. And as a part of the touching grass thing. Yeah. And this is also a reminder that audiobooks exist. I listen to audiobooks when I'm working, and it's really helpful. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Fairy tale endings are way too boring. We need more realistic shit. Yeah, Sephiroth was very much being dramatic, even in the Lifestream. And also obsessed with Cloud. Okay, sorry, my nose itches. Ooh. Yeah, we never really went over themes because I was long-winded. I liked the thoughts about like having to like live with guilt and having to work with it. That instead of taking, you focus on giving. You keep living and you keep giving back. Yeah, and then Nanaki with the importance to remember as much as you can. And experience the world in order to understand it in life. Focus on helping the living to overcome grief. Yeah, a lot about, you know, overcoming grief, guilt, not giving in to despair. That is a good question. How much rebirth Sephiroth knows? I know there's a lot of theories about that. He knows about timelines, so I wonder if he has his memories back. Yeah, I know that that's a theory. I guess we'll find out. Favorite passages and what parts were well written and presented? Well, my favorite section was the Shinra one, but I guess like specific passages, probably the ones I read out loud. Yeah. Because I did really like to see the wholesome interactions between Cloud and Tifa. As a Clody shipper, definitely. But also, seeing Cloud when he isn't mopey edgelord, traumatized Cloud or soldier persona Cloud. Like it's nice to see, like, instead of just the Let's Mosey Cloud that we see in OG, like for a brief period of time in the game, because we don't really get that much time of the Let's Mosey Cloud. Yeah, and we like got a little bit of that in Crisis Core, sure. But it's nice to see, like, after the events of the game, seeing how Cloud was before he got triggered. Very nice to see. Like, I loved that. Just, he did have some consideration. Yes, he acted very childlike with a lot of things. But he was always trying, and Tifa was supporting him in his business, and he was supporting her and helping her. That's like what I really, really appreciated, is seeing Cloud in that way. And we don't get to see that enough. Yeah, seeing him interact with the kids and seeing an AC Marlene drew pictures of him and Tifa. Yeah. And like the fact that like at one point she was looking at the three of them and she was like, Cloud looks like a young father with his children. Like that really warmed my heart. And it's just, I feel like that needs to be talked about a lot more. Is the fact that Cloud has this warm, very sweet side to him that we don't usually get to see because we usually see him traumatized. And I think that's like very hopeful for people who deal with mental health struggles, to go, there are periods of time where you can be present and you are sweet and you are killing it, you know, and taking these opportunities, and you're not always gonna be sad and depressed. You know, it's just nice to see, and I do wish there was more of that. Yes! Yes, when Marlene first met Cloud, she was scared of him. Yeah, also I really loved the relationship between him and Denzel. So it's, yeah. And it just makes me really excited to see part 3 when we get to hear Cody's portrayal of real Cloud. I'm very excited. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Cloud that Tifa fell in love with. Exactly. Anyway. I think we need to wrap up. I'm getting hungry and I have to prepare to go to my sit. So final thoughts. Final thoughts. What final thoughts do you guys have? Oh, also, I did end up getting a shift for Monday, so I think I have to reschedule that stream to Sunday. I am planning on streaming 3 times this coming week. So Sunday will be FF8. Tomorrow is gonna be FF13. Sunday FF8. Wednesday 13 too. And then Saturday, I think I'm gonna do the Gay Ships Pride stream. That's gonna be fun. I guess this was 4 hours. It could have been worse. And doing it this way is certainly a lot easier than spending months making video essays like I did with Traces. I think like just I'm gonna continue to do book club like this instead of video essays, because there's so much material that I need to cover with video essays and like not enough time. So yeah, I have already started my new position. I started training yesterday. So as soon as I know what my set schedule is, it will be easier to schedule streams, and especially a book club at the end of the month. So yeah, reminder, next month, it being Pride Month, we're gonna do Song of Achilles. It's definitely gonna be a different structure because it's the book is structured differently. I'm gonna try to be more brief, and I was thinking it would be fun to go more into learning about Greek tragedies and how Greek stories are told. I'm thinking about like making a presentation or something, making it a little more fun and interactive. Anyway. Thank you guys for joining in. For me rambling about the book forever. I did appreciate the input and the discussions. Yeah, I know I'm long-winded. Highly recommend, if you haven't read the book, to read it. It definitely gives a lot more context. So, I think I'm gonna end this stream. So, I will see you guys tomorrow with FF13 too. Yeah, he will probably add the Let's Mosey. I mean, you have to at this point. It's iconic. Anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day or night. And yeah, bye.